little too fast. But I hope you are all doing well. Looks like we got the quality options, which makes me feel good. We are ready to stream tonight. So, hello, I'm System Chalk. You probably know this because this is the live broadcast as opposed to the pre-recorded one. So my apologies for starting. I wanted to, I knew it was going to be a bit later. I wanted to try and get it in at 7:30. Excuse me. But I've been, so I've got another data project that I've been working on, and I'm not quite ready to talk about. So some of you will know that I did this big network analysis of all of the cards inside of Cultist Simulator. And it's maybe worth saying, if you're watching on the VOD, I'm going to try and make sure that the intro is no more than 10 minutes. Although I don't think anything that I have to say right now is going to be relevant to anybody who who is watching a VOD. I have noticed, however, with maybe the exception of the last Mass Effect video, it does seem to be that there's a bit of a taste for Mass Effect, which surprises me. I'm obviously delighted by that. And, if there's something that I can do better, I'm always happy to try and take that on board. But yeah, actually, so this might be of interest to some of you. When it comes to, so Cultist Simulator is by far the most popular thing, and of course that's gotten its own sort of dedicated video series. And part of what I'm thinking about is more so where would I want to focus my energies outside of, say, Cultist Simulator. Doesn't mean that I'm going to stop it. It's just, I do variety on the broadcast, the live broadcast. It would make sense for me to maybe follow some of those threads in terms of videos. And what I've noticed is that the Elder Scrolls is mixed, but it seems to be there's a real taste for the Planetfall stuff, which surprises me a little bit. And the Mass Effect seems to do quite well, as does Rebel Galaxy Outlaw. So I love Rebel Galaxy Outlaw. I'm definitely going to do more of that, but that's probably going to be live. Obviously, there is a fixed end to Mass Effect 3, and so at some point we will be finished, and I'll need to decide where to go from that. In one sense, I could sort of say, well, maybe it's another story-based game, and particularly a BioWare one, because I have not played Dragon Age Origins or 2. I'm actually quite interested in playing Inquisition, and this is just because as much as I like to play older games and to enjoy some of the classics. So, for instance, one of the more successful streams that I did for GOG was Alpha Centauri, and I happened to know, I got to see sort of sales reports off of that. There were quite a few units of Alpha Centauri that got sold off of that, so that also makes me feel, that makes me feel that to a certain extent the great love that I have for that game came across, and potentially to an audience which maybe either hadn't played it before or one that wanted to reconnect with what they loved from that game. So, again, this is one of the big things for me is that, and, One Must Fall 2097, I did that for my birthday this year. These things very clearly have some dedicated fans. Now, obviously, Dragon Age isn't as old as those games, but it's not exactly new. The funny thing is that for my own personal tastes, I'm sort of the opinion that games keep getting better, that unlike movies where you need to remake the whole movie all over again. So Terminator 1 has very few components. So Terminator 2 has very few components from Terminator 1 that it can sort of use to make Terminator 2. You have to make Terminator 2, and you better hope that you have the magic that went into Terminator 1. Otherwise, you're done. But when it comes to video games, there are very often a lot of reusable pieces. So it's perhaps not very surprising that video game companies tend to use the same technology. And in fact, specifically, there's been these cases. There's been quite a bit of consolidation. So if you were to go out, like, let's just say most of you probably aren't interested in making games, but let's say that you were to go out and do it, I'd say most of you would probably think of Unity or Unreal as an engine that you would use. You would not think about writing one from scratch, although there is a local developer named Owen Deary, who I strongly recommend you all follow on Twitter if you're into this kind of stuff, who is rolling his own engine. And his game, he's got one that came out already, published by Adult Swim, called, I think Small Radios, Big Televisions, or might be the other way around. But he's got an untitled game which is still on its way out. It looks really good. Every time he demos the thing at the local game dev collective, it blows me away what he's able to do. I'm really impressed, and I really respect what he's been able to accomplish on his own. But again, chances are you're going to want to use the technology that other people have developed and specialized, and you'll be building on a lot of things that had been made. I mean, Unity was originally made for a game that wasn't necessarily successful, and essentially the company decided that it would take the tool set that it had made to make this game, and focus on that instead. So all of that is to say, you have not just technology, which is clearly a really important component to video games or any interactive entertainment, really, but you're able to reuse large parts of them. And then, obviously you can't do it completely. So for each Elder Scrolls game, even if they are still using sort of the underlying engine, which I think is in the deepest, darkest corners, I think might still be a fork of Gamebryo. But it's a little bit like saying that, Call of Duty is a fork of Quake. Like, clearly there has been a lot that's gone into that. Warzone does not look like the original Quake. Welcome, by the way, Mad King Brutus. But yeah, it's the biggest thing for me, I'm really going off the rails here, but what it is to say is I'm actually really interested in Dragon Age Inquisition because, of course, it has all of the modern technology. It seems to have been a game that had not yet hit, at the risk of being unkind, some of the hubris that you've been hearing relative to Anthem and Mass Effect Andromeda. I rather liked Anthem, although I would like it if other people did as well, and I think there is room for improvement in that game. And it looks like they're starting to release some of the 2.0 kind of updates and whatnot, information about them. But yeah, Inquisition seems to be a game that people still quite like, but has sort of a lot of the modern, I don't want to say conveniences, but I'll just modern style, modern kind of, it fits my contemporary expectations with games. So Dragon Age Inquisition, you mean another game that you could tag along? Does it have multiplayer? I almost never play multiplayer stuff, but I don't think I replied to it, but I did get your message about our own multiplayer plans. So I'm looking forward to that. Actually, so I was talking about data stuff. That's exactly why I can't do it this weekend. But yeah, anyway, so I'm coming to you belatedly. I'm really, I think I'll just snip all the threads. It means that this 8 minutes of meandering isn't really going anywhere, but I'll say I have been doing a data project, and I'm quite excited for what it'll happen because it's actually for a game developer. And the results of it, at least some of the results, will be made public. I don't know the date when the blog will be released, but I know I'm going to be presenting at least a preliminary version of those results to the local game dev collective next week. I mean, if Owen's showing off his game, then that's going to be the thing everybody's talking about. But I'm hoping some of those results sort of provoke people's responses. And I'm looking forward to it because I think there's a couple of good ideas that I would like to see some other people take up if they can, or alternatively to talk to me and take them up to I don't know, just generally try and raise the level of information that independent developers are sharing with each other. One other little bit of housekeeping before I start doing journal entries and all of that. I feel that I should mention. Oh yes, I forgot. Mass Effect is also a very quiet game, so I'm going to crank the audio here. I'm going to lower myself, so you guys may want to adjust your own volumes. And hopefully we brought balance to the force. I might still be a little too loud, but sorry about that. I believe I am maxed out on the sound. Yep. There was a bit of housekeeping that I wanted to get out of the way. So for those of you who watch stuff on YouTube, the latest Elder Scrolls Morrowind episode went live, no problems there. Unfortunately, it looks like Twitch just decided to stop processing the VOD that I had made for that. And so for those of you who were waiting at 7 o'clock to see when the next episode would come up, that never happened because that finished uploading at about 1 o'clock this morning. Now this puts me in a little bit of a dilemma because tonight I would like to do Mass Effect and Friday I would like to do Mass Effect. Which would leave me maybe tomorrow to do a sort of a makeup Elder Scrolls stream, but I was actually planning on doing another game on Thursday because somebody gave me a key to something that looks kind of interesting. Hello, Earth Daughter 17. How you doing? So what I might wind up doing, I'll maybe get a feeling for this at the end of the stream tonight. I'm thinking that maybe what I'll do is I will put up that Elder Scrolls episode at the end of this stream, and then if you want to stick around and watch it, you can. I don't feel great about it, but I figure the VOD is on YouTube is higher quality anyway, so it's clear that, you know, if I don't do it, the only other thing I could maybe try and do is like a weekend, but at that point I'm recording the next episode, and then it's, you know, it's a little it's potentially I bring those two series out of sync. So all right, let's read some journals if there is anything left. No. All right, then I guess I actually need to get on with the mission.
We just took down a Reaper without a giant thresher maw helping.
Damn right. We just showed the galaxy we can beat them.
Is the game to voice volume the ratio okay? I know the game's going to be quiet. Unfortunately, I can't control that any more than I've done here, but
Unread messages at your private terminal, Commander.
if I can try and make it a less painful experience to have me booming over the game while you're straining to hear it, I can try and close the gap a little bit. I really should just turn off my phone because I suspect the next.
The Quarians have done pretty well with those suits. Maybe they can make something like that for you.
Yeah, they have. Protective medical exoskeleton. I could even get one with racing stripes.
So what's the problem?
Well, it's like walking around in heavy armor. It totally screws with my spatial awareness.
I wear heavy armor, and my spatial awareness is perfect.
You crashed the last shuttle you flew, Vega. I need to feel my balance shift when I'm flying. I need to feel the ship moving with me. You take that away, and I don't know. I mean, I'm good, but I'm not me.
Yeah, I get that.
Plus, have you seen Tally? Come on, I don't have the hips to carry a suit like that. Gotta hand it to you, Commander. That's the first time I've seen someone end a war by yelling.
I hope that if Tally could see reason, then the rest of the Quarians might listen too.
I had hoped my cooperation with Tally, along with Legions, would help her question her socialized prejudice.
Yeah, kinda hard to dehumanize someone who's right there guarding your back. And now we've got 2 fleets for the price of 1. We didn't lose anybody.
Except Legion. Before it sacrificed itself, Legion referred to itself as I instead of we.
Yeah? So?
The singular pronoun indicates Legion's independent personality had fully actualized. In its last moments, it was not an avatar of the Geth consensus. It was a person.
That's what I figured.
Well, when the Geth fleet helps us retake Earth, I guess we'll owe that to him.
That was a nice little detail.
It's on your mind, Edie.
I was just reflecting. The Quarians' historical era was not making the Geth enough like them.
I'm not sure I understand.
Units with networked intelligences will trend toward cooperation for mutual benefit. But units with central heuristics establishing an individual personality, such as myself, develop preferences. These preferences form attachments that keep my calculations from devaluing the worth of the lives aboard the Normandy.
You're saying the Geth turned on the Quarians because they aren't individuals?
That is my theory, but it is limited to a sample size of one society. The only other notable synthetic society is the Reapers, and we do not know if they govern by consensus as the Geth do.
Do me a favor. Don't ask them.
Hello, Shepard.
All right. I suspect there will probably be other crewmates who have things to say about the mission that we just went on, so I'm going to do some rounds, talk with people, but I'll start with the terminal.
I hear you were on the ground with the Reaper. He fired up at us a few times. Joker pulled the Normandy through some insane maneuvers to stay out of the line of fire.
It's hard being in a fight like that, especially when you're not the one flying the ship. Joker's one of the best, though.
At first I was nauseous, swinging around in my safety harness. But then I was furious. Just... enraged. I wanted that thing dead.
You didn't want the Reapers dead when they attacked Earth?
I wanted them defeated. I wanted Earth saved. But I never wanted to physically tear them in half and watch them blow up.
Congratulations, trainer. I believe you've discovered your fight-or-flight instinct.
Perhaps I should have stayed with chess. Although now I think I'm spoiled by the lack of explosions.
I found work to do from Talizora, Shepard. Just wanted to let you know that I'm going to join Adams in engineering. It seems like the best place for me to help as long as I'm coming with you anyway. Please drop by when you have a minute. Tali. Progress report from Shalaran Vesranok. Commander, with my assistance from the Geth, our fleet is nearly back to full strength. We have focused most of our supplies on providing evacuation assistance and support for the Turian fleet, while the Geth harass the Reapers. Even with our newfound peace, it seems foolish to risk an incident by putting our forces in closer proximity. I understand from Admiral Zen that the Crucible project continues well, though Zen herself seems dissatisfied with the technological capabilities of the device. Though eccentric, she is also brilliant. Hopefully she will find some way to improve its functionality. I would never have believed you would talk hand down, Commander. Take care of Talizora for me. Kila Salai, Admiral Shalaran Vesranok. And let's talk Quarian War from Diana Allers. It may be hard to believe after what we just went through, but the rest of the galaxy is barely aware that Quarians ever went into the Veil, let alone started a war with the Geth. We're sitting on a major piece of history here. I have material from all the players except you. Can I get your thoughts on... can I get into your cabin for an hour and get your thoughts on Vid? Diana. Okay. It's interesting. I think the game is setting it up so that you can have a romantic relationship with Diana Allers if you are so inclined. I happen to know what happened to General Petraeus, so that's the last character that I would want to start a love scene with.
I can't believe you got the Geth and Quarians to play nice. You should get a medal for that alone. It looks like we just need to get the Asari on board, and we can finally focus on the Reapers.
All right, so I think
I don't suppose it'll be as easy as all that.
I think the game's
Nothing ever is.
One step at a time, I guess.
I think the game's telling me I'm getting close to the
300 years it took to take back the Quarian homeworld. I sure as hell hope it doesn't take that long for us. I'm ready to see Earth again, Shepard. I still can't believe you went inside a Geth. I don't even... Loco. Completely loco. Hey.
I was going to say something else, and then I lost it. Oh yeah, sorry. I was talking earlier about the types of games to play. So the only reason why I wouldn't immediately do something like Dragon Age right away is that I do find these games take quite a bit of time, and I have a list of stuff that I'd like to get through on the stream, as well as for VODs. So I'm not turning down BioWare as an option at all. Hello. I can't believe I missed those. It's also really dark there. But I'm going to try and change things up a little bit just to make sure that I I sort of hit all of my interests in terms of streaming. A lot of my streaming time is actually dedicated, a lot of my gaming time is dedicated to stream now, so I want to try and do things that I find interesting and I've kind of neglected.
Everything is in order.
All right, well, didn't want to talk to you anyway. Davik, you're back.
Another Reaper has died. You are proving that humans are capable soldiers.
How many?
But I question this peace you have brokered. No such thing is possible between machines and organics. I would have destroyed the synthetics without hesitation. And these Quarians, let's just hope they are reliable allies. It is difficult to trust a species that hides behind masks.
How many Reapers did you kill, Javik?
The only conflict you should concern yourself with is ending the one with the Reapers. Diplomacy does not win wars. Powerful and plentiful firearms do. How do you see with only 2 eyes? Evolution has taken a strange turn in this cycle. Do not care what others think. Do what you must. Do not care what others think. Do what you must.
I probably have mentioned this before, but I'm actually really impressed with the decision to make Javik the way that he is. It's clearly not the first time that a science fiction story has taken sort of this mystical or, really... It's almost like the Mr. Wu species. So there's there's a story. I think it's a story from Orson Welles, but I apparently this might actually be a real play, but I don't know if this is true. But basically, I think I've told this story before. But basically, there's like everybody's on the stage, to kind of talking about Mr. Wu. What will Mr. Wu think? And yes, but wait till Mr. Wu shows up, and so on and so forth. All of this build up. You get to the end of the first act. A man walks onto the stage and he says, "Look, Mr. Wu is here." And the curtain comes down and everybody runs out to the intermission and says, what a brilliant actor Mr. Wu is. So this was in reference to The Third Man, which if you've not seen it, I won't go any further. But if you've seen the film, you'll know why he gave that example. And it does actually happen to be one of his better performances. So in this case, the Protheans, and again, you see this in other science fiction stories, you have this idea. I mean, I think it's quite common and natural for us
you
to
comment on every woman's figure but mine.
Well,
What? You don't like my legs?
Gabby, it's you. You know?
No chicken shit, I don't know. All you do is make stupid sexist comments to avoid saying anything real.
Gabby, now's not the time. We've got work to do. Responsibilities.
Grow a pair, Ken. Look around you. Tomorrow may not come. Something to say, or no?
Gabby, please. We have a duty to the ship and the crew.
What about us? Just... listen to yourself. Kenneth, you comment on every woman's figure, but...
We're not fighting this war for ourselves, Donnelly. We're fighting for the people close to us. Time is short.
I see your point, Commander. Gabby, I think your legs are spectacular.
Well, that's a start.
Power grid is in the green.
Commander?
I'm curious if there's any consequences for these support decisions.
Commander.
Anyways, so, if you think of 2001: A Space Odyssey, you never really meet the aliens, but you have, I think, a fairly reasonable feeling that they are benevolent because there's, this is how we gained technology, this is how we gain knowledge. And it's sort of this thing that is pursued throughout the film. I'm sorry that I'm referring to it as a film and not a book. The book is also very good, but I'm a big Kubrick fan, so I'm gonna betray my allegiances here. And again, there's lots of cases where you can see that happening. Now, you turn around and you can take a look at something like Prometheus, where you kind of have this character who's trying to find his creator, right? We found the aliens that have created the human race, and the reaction from the creator is effectively, are these things still around? And beats the guy to death, which is a very different view of, you know, of the what I kind of call the Mr. Wu species. So I like that BioWare presents Javik the way that he does. I mean, again, for me, my focus and my point of interest in terms of Javik as a character is less about his status as a Prothean so much as I'm interested in him as sort of the failed shepherd. And particularly, I'm interested in him being a foil to a lot of the decisions that I'm making here, which are about uniting the disparate species and, you know, fighting back the Reapers. To a certain extent, if you've seen Ghost in the Shell, there's sort of a similar motivation. Essentially, the argument for the approach that I'm taking out against the Reapers is somewhat the same as what the AI in Ghost in the Shell wants. It understands that this sort of homogeneous approach, that if it's just constantly replicating itself without variety, without difference, it is incredibly fragile and will ultimately be destroyed. But once you introduce mutation, once you introduce change and variety, there's more robustness. And I mean, kind of this is, if I want to get to contemporary views, it's sort of this idea, you can almost think of this as like a World War II sort of thing, right? Democracies look very fragile from the outside. And it's not to say that it wasn't a close thing. I mean, if, you know, the German research was very advanced, but ultimately, despite the fact that the democracies have all of the, you know, the qualities that people would normally associate with being not as strong, they were able to take out on the fascist regimes that were all about presenting strength, and of course were very fixed and very narrow in terms of their views. And then, of course, you can take a look at the technological progress following it. And essentially, the idea that you get, again, this is going to sound like a very soft view, you know, argument for liberalism, but I guess the idea here is that if you believe that no one group is going to have all of the good ideas at a time, you know, at the same time, then it is better to be as permissive as possible and allow those ideas to come towards you. And again, you don't necessarily want to talk about it in a historical context because either people get offended or they will... And again, offending people isn't necessarily the worst thing that can happen. If somebody gets offended by the idea that the Allies were more adaptable, so for instance, women were working in factories earlier, it took the Germans undoing a lot of their propaganda to get the productive capacity of half of their population once they started losing the war. But again, people's priors as far as how they believe the world works might get in the way of appreciating that story. For some reason, Mass Effect just fell away. There we go. What you can say instead, you know, again, you don't need to get attached to whatever your reading or your beliefs are about history. The argument here for this approach inside of Mass Effect is to say that, you know, the Asari, the Solarians, the Quarians all have specialties, and they are going to have an approach which is appropriate for coming after the Reapers. And the reasons the Protheans failed and the reason we will succeed is that the Protheans essentially wanted to fix everything to their way, right? They were this empire, they conquered everything, and essentially they had sort of... you were incorporated into the empire insofar as you were able to be useful to them. Whereas you have, you know, the problems of the system. So, for instance, the Batarians are not the sort of thing that you would associate with a positive contribution to the war effort, right? I don't mean to overstate the argument on here, but I think the idea here will be that through being able to navigate the frictions between these different factions and to point them towards this common enemy of the Reapers produces a better chance of success. And so this is why I look at Javik as a foil to the way that I'm playing Commander Shepard. It's entirely possible that you play sort of a humans first approach in this game. I'm going to assume that that's if you go down more a renegade path. Again, I only know Mass Effect as I've played it on this this ride. But with that out of the way, the other thing about the Protheans, which I haven't really talked about that much, is the fact that it does, it's going that Prometheus route, which is we have this view of what this group was, that they gave us the technology that is the foundation for the galaxy or the galactic order as we know it, and so we kind of assume them to be this, I don't know, group of philosopher kings. Although I suppose if you've read Republic, maybe actually Republic's not a bad description of the Prothean society. It's definitely not a very cosmopolitan view of the world, let's say. But basically the idea here is that you have a number of assumptions which actually don't necessarily, like if you think about it, all the assumptions that we were making about who the Protheans were and what they're like, and obviously the game is giving you this trail of breadcrumbs, right? The way that Liara Tassoni talks about the Protheans in the earlier games leads you to think of them as something of a benevolent force. But to see them as they are, and to see them as basically not very nice people who you're not necessarily all that aligned with, I think is a neat touch. And it's, the easy, I guess the best way that I could kind of take it to you would be, you study the periods and imagine for a moment that you didn't know the conditions under which the pyramids were made. And you have dedicated your life to studying that. You know about the burial chambers, and then you get a chance to meet one of the pharaohs in person, and they talk about, well, of course, we had a bunch of slaves who built this stuff. What, you think we would do that ourselves? Are you nuts? Imagine what you would think about that. And I think that's, again, not an obvious choice with what they could have done with the Protheans, but I'm happy they did, because it's just so interesting. And you get to imagine all these different paths of sort of where this could go. Because, of course, you're also seeing Javik, the one person that the Protheans decided to save. Had it been another, you might get a very different view of the society. But of course, Prothean society did ultimately choose to make that person the last one who would survive.
Can't be. No. I guess that's right.
Hey, Tally. How's it going?
Oh, sorry. I didn't hear you. I just got communication from the fleet. Sorry, from Rannoch. In the old days, I'd sent any new technology I found back to the fleet. I should probably be doing that with the agriculture samples now. I don't know anything about raising crops.
How are your people doing?
It's crazy. The Geth are helping, setting up housing, adapting power systems. They are doing in weeks what would have taken us years. Geth are even uploading into the suits of Quarian volunteers. They're rewriting environmental functions, jump-starting our immune systems.
That doesn't seem possible.
The Geth are software, not hardware. They can transfer themselves from a normal body into anything with enough processing power. They're mimicking infections, so the host can adapt without getting sick. It's like making a vaccine.
So the Quarians won't have to wear those suits anymore?
It doesn't seem possible, but yes, in a few years, with Geth improvements, we won't need them. We might still wear them. The suits have become part of our society. But a rupture won't be a death sentence. Today, on Rannoch, there are Quarian children who will grow up healthy and strong, thanks to the Geth.
They owe that to you.
No. I'd have killed the Geth with no regrets. And I'd have been wrong. Thank you.
That was a nice little exchange.
I can't believe my people are working with the Geth.
I know I say that for like just about every exchange, but I don't know. It's nice to get an idea about how other people feel about what's going on in the world.
Dire news from Earth. Off the radar, reaping begins in rural areas. Millions are dead in the Central Asian wilderness, even more in sub-Saharan Africa. We'll give you the gruesome view of what happens when the Reapers don't stop to indoctrinate. Now, in the battle space. Commander, I'm doing a segment on the Geth-Quarian War. It should take maybe an hour. Can we talk in your cabin? Call me up when you're ready for that interview, Commander.
Trying to remember. I feel like this list has changed. If I had a guess, this will become Miranda's room, but I'm not sure. Miranda seems to be the only other character that's sort of been waiting in the wings, and we haven't run into yet. Partly by choice, but we'll probably remedy that by the end of the broadcast tonight. I don't need to go to the bathroom. I don't know why I hit that.
Feeling okay, Commander? Feeling okay, Commander?
There's usually nothing in here for me, but it doesn't hurt to double check.
Another Reaper gone, and peace between the Geth and Quarians. It's amazing.
And now my people have a world to fight for. Something they know will last forever.
So long as you and the Geth remain good neighbors.
They're not our servants anymore. I'm not sure what we should call them. Allies?
Friends?
There's still too many wounds on either side. But maybe one day.
The migrant fleet and the Geth warships have joined Admiral Hackett. Perhaps we can talk later.
Email from Sergeant Kavanaugh to Sergeant Ichi. Next time you want to warn me that the Geth... Next time you want to warn me that the Geth are our friends and maybe that we're not supposed to shoot the big robots. I almost pissed myself when these primes started dropping out of the sky and mopping up the Reapers. We fired a few rounds at them until we realized they weren't firing back. Then this one comes over and says they're allied assistants and asks for our status. Not complaining, they saved my crew, but I'm never living down having to apologize to a Geth for shooting one of his damn lights off.
Greetings, Commander.
It's so weird that it greets me on the way out, but I don't think I've heard it say it on my way in. Maybe I just don't recognize it. You'll notice when it goes wrong, not when it goes right.
Peace between the Geth and Quarians.
Who would have thought?
Not how I ever imagined that would turn out. And next you'll be telling me the Krogan and Turians are cooperating. Oh, right. You managed that one too. You're a peacemaker, Shepard. A rare thing these days. Now, if you can pacify the Reapers, we'll make you a saint. Not sure if having an army of Geth behind us gives me confidence or makes me feel like there's a target on my back. Good to see you.
Alright, so I get to see my new ships, and I think we've got at least one bit of dialogue as far as the Owler's interview is concerned. By the way, so I did a blog on people haranguing their chats for interaction, so please don't take this in that spirit, but I did want to double check. I haven't seen anything since Earth Daughter 17 said hi. I'm actually quite happy to play this game and leave it on my own, but I did want to double check that I'm not having any kind of a chat problem. So if you've said something and I've not responded, please let me know and I'll try and find what's going on. Of course, if you let me know in chat and it's still broken, I can't help you. So I suppose I could maybe the better way for me putting it is, hey, the mirrors do work. The better way for me to put it maybe would be, if I've not responded, it is likely because I have a problem with my chat. And if you haven't said anything, that's fine, because I like playing this game.
Trainer, can you send up Diana Allers? She wants to talk to me.
She's on her way, Commander.
I'm sure you've got a million questions.
I narrowed it down to 40. Let's see how you do with the top 10. Commander, the last time most of us heard about Geth, they were attacking the Citadel alongside Sovereign.
Yes, and you should know that was a minority of the Geth. Most of them are not hostile to organics.
Is that how you explain that they're allies, and no longer dangerous robots who stick humans on spikes?
What you have to realize is that despite their reputation, most Geth are not inherently violent. The Quarians attacked them. The Geth fought back in self-defense just like any organic would. Now that we've freed the Geth from Reaper control, they'll want payback for their enslavement.
But you're going to take an army of synthetics to fight Reapers with untold hacking abilities. What's keeping the Reapers from reprogramming the Geth like they have before?
I feel like this interview was brought in specifically to to answer that question for the player.
The Geth are extremely intelligent, and they've put incredible thought into solving this problem. They're not going to turn again. I'd bet my life on it.
Now here's a question from a Batarian on Omega. Commander Shepard, if the mass relays can be destroyed... So did I miss anything? Do you have any questions?
You gonna go file your story now?
Well, if you don't mind.
Go tell the galaxy what we've done. I could use some good news.
Aye aye, Commander.
Interesting. I thought there might be more dialogue options with her. I don't think there's any... Yeah, wouldn't be any... But we do have a codex entry, so... The Reaper War. Desperate measures. Faced with utter annihilation, military planners have considered extreme solutions in their quest to stomp the Reapers. The two most plausible are the destruction of mass relays and the use of starships as suicide weapons. Destroying a mass relay to stop the Reapers' advance is infeasible, although it has recently been proven that mass relays can be destroyed. A ruptured relay liberates enough energy to ruin any terrestrial world in the relay's solar system. It would take too long to evacuate the millions or billions of people living near each relay, and the Council is unwilling to sacrifice that many lives when combat stands a chance of saving them. Even if a garden world were to survive the relay's destruction, the Reapers have infinite patience. They've traveled out of space using conventional FTL travel within the galaxy... They've traveled out of dark space using conventional FTL. Travel within the galaxy is not an insurmountable barrier. Meanwhile, starships are too costly to be used as projectiles, given that it would take many collisions to seriously harm a Reaper. Some armchair admirals suggest that a single starship traveling at faster than light could obliterate a Reaper capital ship, but all ships based on Mass Effect technology possess hardwired safety features to prevent FTL collisions. If a ship's FTL plotter finds a significant object and the path of a planned jump, the FTL drive refuses to fire in the first place. This is not a perfect safety feature. The sensors can only scan for objects within a reasonable distance at light speed, and a navigator must plot the rest of the course, but it is so inherent to the FTL warm-up process that removing it is nigh impossible. Cynical intelligence analysts note that the secret of the Mass Effect technology, including that safety system, has always been attributed to the Protheans, just as the mass relays were. For some reason, it looks like that interview got us the Geth Corps? Maybe it's because the propaganda efforts
Commander.
got us a little something extra. So I know I'm taking my time getting to the missions, but I'd sort of like to see where that's sitting. Also, it's just kind of nice to start with a clean slate for the reading. Geth Corps. Until recently, the Geth expected nothing but violence from organics and designed themselves accordingly. All Geth platforms are armed, shielded, and built to withstand combat. When they're on the battlefield, enemy tactics and positions are swapped instantaneously between the AIs. The Geth also employ turrets and drones, expendable hardware support to keep losses of network platforms to a minimum. The result is the largest and perhaps best equipped infantry in the galaxy. Updated. Commander Shepard's interview with Diana Allers about the Geth emphasized their value as strong military allies. The Council reluctantly sent the Geth shipments of rare minerals to upgrade ground units. I did also do a slightly better job of playing the Galaxy at War minigame.
Commander.
So our war asset score is a bit better than it normally would have been after taking some time away from the game. So before I go too much further, I should take a second here and just see what kind of missions I'm looking at. So the Citadel is the priority, but if I can make it to... Actually, it looks like there's quite a few of them. So I am going to, before I go back to the Citadel, it would be best if I can get as many of these objects that I need to return as possible. I think I've probably already done that, but we might have some new locations that have been unlocked. So for instance, the Far Rim, the Hades Nexus, Ninma cluster, maybe? I feel like the Ninma cluster we went to already. So the Silesian Nebula, apparently we've got the fuel reactors there. Anos Basin, I don't think there's anything for me, but we'll maybe take a quick look. Yeah, it definitely feels like there's more than a few of these that have potentially have some things for me to pick up. So we'll run through. Now I know. I think the last time I streamed this, we did Starflight. So you guys now have a little bit of a better idea about what the what the inspiration for this was like. I'm gonna feel very foolish if there's nothing here. I figure I've only got one shot to find out if there's anything in the area, so.
Reapers eluded.
Unfortunately, there's no opportunity for me to pick up fuel, so I'm probably gonna have to buy it in whatever system I get to next. Mind you, if the... Okay. I think I'm gonna take a quick visit to the Perseus Vale and see if there's a chance for me to get out of there. No. All right. So I can take my chances going into one of the Reaper-occupied areas. And then, of course, the drawback is that I get caught. I think before I go too crazy, let's just save. So there's a chance that I get caught in deep space without fuel. But let's go to the Hades Nexus and see what's going on. Usually, I feel like there's the ruins of a refueling depot in most of these, so...
I found something.
Hello? A habitable planet known for its arid sulfurous deserts. Asteria is colonized near the poles to avoid the uncomfortable temperatures that can reach 65 degrees Celsius in the more southern latitudes. While seas contain primitive land life, a little of it can live on land. Primitive animal life, a little of it can live on land, leaving the soil to hardy plants that can survive the extreme heat. Asteria is home to a thriving human and Asari agrarian colonies, but little in the way of manufacturing or mining. Travel advisory. Carbon dioxide concentrations can reach 2,500 parts per million in Asteria's atmosphere. Citizens should carry supplemental oxygen for children and the elderly. Consult with local governments to discuss animal companion detection systems and other preparatory measures. Alliance Bulletin. Geth have been encountered in the Hecate system. All civilian traffic is prohibited. Colony founded in 2044 CE. Population 188 million. Capital Blackdamp. Orbital distance 1.3 AUs. Orbital period 1.5 Earth years, radius 5,900 kilometers, day length 21.4 Earth hours, atmospheric pressure 1.2 Earth atmospheres, surface temperatures 25 Celsius in the habitable zone, and surface gravity of 0.8 Gs. And we've got the Alliance frigate Hong Kong. So this is one of the things that I've sort of failed to appreciate. I think I've mentioned this before too, so that almost certainly it's a fuel depot. Hopefully I find that before I... It's got to be in here somewhere.
Faster than light jump successful.
I'm taking a risk doing this, but there it is.
Evasion successful.
And I think I should be able to make it, but it's going to get a little tight. This gives me wreckage of the fuel depot destroyed by enemy forces. Fuel can be salvaged from the debris, 380 units of fuel. That's not a lot, but it's something.
Reapers eluded.
So let's go to Shaw.
Signal confirmed.
A nearly atmosphere-less tidally locked planet orbiting a red dwarf star. Sorry, I was saying, meaning to say before. So one of the things that I find kind of interesting that I fail to pick up on in the whenever I visit these planets, they all seem kind of dead, and so when I pick up things like frigates or I find people, it always surprises me a little bit. Guy Hinnom was the first place human explorers discovered and detected a Prothean burial ground. Sorry. Guy Hinnom was the first place human explorers discovered a dedicated Prothean burial ground. While a few sites were saved for posterity, Eldfell Ashland Mining successfully lobbied to scout the rest of the planet for Element Zero, and soon was embroiled in a scandal. Mining teams were looting grave sites, searching for Ezo and other treasures, and many got rich off the so-called cemetery business. While EAM officially brought a stop to the looting, its mining teams remain on the planet, prospecting the unclaimed territory and taking their ore to the Pymat system for refining. Travel advisory. Armed conflicts have broken out between miners and scientists, staking claims to Prothean ruins. Visitors are advised to employ security while exploring unknown regions of the planet. Population 11,503, orbital distance 0.83 AUs, orbital period 0.8 Earth years, radius 2,379 kilometers, day length 0.8 Earth years, atmospheric pressures, trace surface temperature trace surface temperature 35 degrees Celsius in the habitable zone, 108 degrees Celsius to minus 120 degrees Celsius in the uninhabitable zone, and gravity of 0.1 Gs. And we found a Prothean sphere. So that's everything in this area. So again, I'm a little curious what happens if I run out of fuel, because I think that's very likely to happen in this system.
I found something.
I like finding the fuel early. The wreckage of fuel depot destroyed by enemy forces. Fuel can be salvaged from the debris, recovered 100 units, so it gives me a little something. Dobrovskoli? Nope. Dobrovolsky. Another near-Earth-sized rock planet without much atmosphere to speak of. Dobrovolsky is home to Altai Mineral Works, a local extraction company noted for its success in Ezo refining. The planet itself provides aluminum for local fabricators, which are churning out habitats at an astonishing rate for a system that has no garden planets. With its ore supply coming all the way from the Shoal system, Dobrovolsky is held up as a proof of the miner's cliche. Where there's Ezo, there's an economy. Orbital distance 2.3 AU, orbital period 3.5 Earth years, radius 6,972 kilometers, day length 59.1 Earth hours, atmospheric pressure 0.21 Earth atmospheres, surface temperature minus 46 degrees Celsius, and surface gravity of 0.9 Gs. I'm mildly curious if the decision to report in the Alliance frigate Leipzig and Alliance First Fleet, I'm assuming that's an update for the inclusion of the Leipzig. I'm curious if the inclusion of degrees is because BioWare is Canadian, or if the inclusion of degrees is because that
Signal confirmed.
Kind of seems to be what the scientific community largely uses, not universally, obviously, but the wreckage of fuel depot destroyed by enemy forces. Fuel can be salvaged from the debris. I probably don't need to read that every time, but I've gotten in the habit. Compass. Makira's largest moon, Compass, is a desolate place with an extremely thin atmosphere. Its crust is largely silica-based, and there are no signs of water. Like its parent planet, its high albedo keeps it from being a total inferno. While occluded by Makira, its temperatures can be nearly tolerable. Its low gravity can easily be countered by a vehicular or personal mass effect field for comfortable exploration. Orbital distance 0.55 AUs, radius 1,733 kilometers, day length 21.3 Earth hours, atmospheric pressure trace, surface temperature 51 degrees Celsius, and surface gravity 0.1 Gs. The Obelisk of Karza. And now we get out of here. Ooh.
Evasion successful.
Alright, so we did rather well for ourselves fuel-wise. I think we're still going to get into some trouble, but...
Reapers eluded.
I'm going to start with the Ninma cluster, but I'm going to save. So my hope normally is to clear out a sector without having to go back and forth between systems. Now, the fact that there is a surviving fuel depot makes me think that I might be able to get away with scanning... Nope.
Faster than light jump successful.
So here's what I'm going to do. Quick run to the fuel depot.
Evasion successful.
At this point, it doesn't matter if I piss off the Reapers anymore. They're already going to come get me.
Reapers eluded.
So we'll see if Mullah Zul has anything. And if it does, that should give us a percentage to work with. Interesting. So it's possible It's possible there might be something for me to do here later, but it looks like there isn't anything. So I kind of wasted money on the fuel. I know they're going to be chasing me when we come back, but I'm confident I'll survive.
Faster than light jump successful. Evasion successful.
Okay, so Attican Beta we've already visited. Argos Rho maybe not. Again, I'm fairly certain we've already exhausted the Horsehead Nebula, so let's start with Argos Rho.
I found something.
Nice. You know what? Let's... Oh! Canrum. Canrum is a small rocky world with a trace atmosphere of methane and krypton. Its surface is mainly composed of magnesium and silicates with deposits of carbon. Canrum was the site of warlord Shigar's defeat by Turian peacekeeping forces during the Krogan rebellions. While this band was not especially powerful, Shigar was a female warlord and one of the few remaining fertile females at that. She had, through viciousness and cunning, parlayed her unique value from a position into a position of power. Krogan males competed for the right to join her band and lie with her. When Shigar's death was announced, vengeful male Krogan admirers near and far swore blood oaths against the participating Turian crews. In the end, several thousand of the Turian participants were killed in open combat or through assassination. To this day, many Krogan proudly proclaim that they have the blood of Shigar. Orbital distance, 16.52 AUs, orbital period 67.3 Earth years, radius 5,220 kilometers, day length 32.5 Earth hours, atmospheric pressure 0.07 Earth atmospheres, surface temperature minus 132 degrees Celsius, and a surface gravity of 0.55 Gs. And Reapers chasing me to boot. So I kind of want to scan this off the top just so I can get an idea of how many objects are in the area. If I can identify the fuel depot, that would be even better. Optics array. Yeah, so 50%. So we've got a lot of area, and I'm gonna get eaten in a minute. There it is. Okay, so I don't need the fuel right now.
Reapers eluded.
Go to Phoenix first. It's neat how they did the naming. So I might just want to check out the Pinnacle Station. Alright, nothing special here yet.
Signal confirmed.
Alright, well, I could shut up. The asteroid-based Pinnacle Station was originally constructed by Turians to function as a concealed command center during the Krogan rebellions. It has been retrofitted as a military training facility for all high-level special operations teams employed by the Council. The station's combat simulator allows teams to train under a variety of hazardous conditions. Population 1,200, radius 340 meters, and we brought the Reapers to their doorstep. I should have refilled my water before I started, but I figure we'll get some gameplay and hopefully missions where I get to, duck behind cover and stuff like that. How much can I get? Okay, we've found the targets. It's just going to be hard to pick them up.
Faster than light jump successful.
No, it's not. So there's the fuel at least. I think that's more than I can actually handle. And I'm going to take another approach because I know one thing I'm not crazy about in these segments is that they still pursue you while you're loading the... So that could be a possible game over. An atmosphere similar to Earth's made Intai an early candidate for human colonization. However, prohibitively high temperatures and an arid climate have proven a hindrance to terraforming and agriculture. A few human cities were founded, but the majority of the human population on Intai remained scattered across the vast deserts, operating wind farms and geological research stations. Colony founded 2166, population 150,000. Capital Thoro Mesa, orbital distance 15.68 AUs, orbital period 47.8 Earth years, radius 5,897 kilometers, day length 27.6 Earth hours, atmospheric pressure 90.95 Earth atmospheres. 95 Earth atmospheres would be something. Surface temperature 46 degrees Celsius and a surface gravity of 0.8 Gs. But yeah, so the Reapers still move on you as the menu's coming up, so this is going to be a close scrape.
Reapers eluded.
I screwed up. That's some wasted fuel there.
I found something.
Cameron. Cameron was a terrestrial world with a thin atmosphere of carbon dioxide and argon. The surface is scorching hot, primarily composed of iron with deposits of nickel. Like Wuo, Cameron is tide-locked to the Blue Giant, forever looking into the face of the Gorgon. Orbital distance 199 AUs, orbital period 664.8 Earth years, radius 5,198 kilometers, day length 664.8 Earth years, atmospheric pressure 0.23 Earth oh wait a minute, it's because of the there's a reason there's text. Atmospheric pressure 0.23 Earth atmospheres, surface temperature 747 degrees Celsius, surface gravity 0.55 Gs, and somewhere in this madness, we are apparently going to find resources of great power. Advanced power relays. 100%, so we don't need to look any further.
Faster than light jump successful.
I'm just happy I could annoy the Geth Reapers one last time. Okay, so we're gonna grab the fuel. I actually would like to double check that I'm not leaving anything on the table.
Evasion successful.
Yeah, we've cleared it out. So we jump through the mass relay, and I'm fairly certain
Reapers eluded.
This is it as far as getting extra stuff is concerned. I think we've always wound up going to the Horsehead Nebula, and there hasn't been... Oh, no. Clearly, there's the fuel reactors. So here's what I'll do just for completeness. I'm going to stop by the Horsehead Nebula to take a look. I think there's at least a refueling station. Ah, yeah. So we... Now, it may be that there winds up being, you know, another source of fuel in one of these other areas that I check. But, I don't know, the cost isn't all that high, so I don't think there's anything in the Annos Basin either. Yeah, I think this is the same story. It's a little odd that they have sort of the same type of system so close to each other, but it's not like you have any limit. Like, it's not like you manually have to go through all the systems, so let's... Okay, so we will clear out our plunder, and then we can get on with the main story. Well, on the Citadel, we'll probably drop off all the stuff we just got first, but... And because I have a wonderful habit of sabotaging myself, I figure we'll do a quick save.
Signal confirmed.
Hello? Hanali. Early surveyors of the Hanali dismissed its resource potential, saying that it had more heat than a planet needs and more argon than a galaxy would buy. As an enormous terrestrial planet buried under the merciless atmosphere of argon, nitrogen, and carbon dioxide, Hanalei hosted only small orbital stations that were primarily scientific in nature. These facilities have since been destroyed by the Reapers. Orbital distance 0.5 AU, orbital period 0.4 Earth years, radius 11,477 kilometers, day length 46.4 Earth hours, atmospheric pressure 72.52 Earth atmospheres, surface temperature 490 Celsius, and surface gravity 2.36 Gs. Fine place to take your family on vacation. If you hate them. So here's a question for those of you who'd like to participate in chat. And again, don't feel an obligation to do so. For those of you that have played and enjoyed the trilogy, do you have a preferred kind of planetary exploration or resource acquisition method? So what I mean by that is there's the Mako sequences in the first Mass Effect. And I really think that's probably the biggest tell in terms of the influence of Starflight. And that was obviously reduced down to the scanning game in Mass Effect 2, which was further reduced here to find one item on a planet. And I'm a little curious whether or not there's any feelings as to what was the best form. There might also be a variation of that in Andromeda. I have not played Andromeda yet, so this is my first time in Mass Effect 3. But I am interested in what people think of that element, because I know it seems to be one that people have sort of struggled with, or at least BioWare has struggled with in terms of getting a warm reaction from players. Zion, this Garden World's claim to military fame is it's that it was assaulted repeatedly during the Krogan rebellions, but never occupied by more than token forces. The Asari cut off the Krogan supply line at the Citadel relay and drove the invaders out. Today, antimatter generators on the surface and in orbital stations provide fuel for military starships throughout Asari space. The matriarchs defending the planet today have vowed to maintain Sion's legacy. They pledge it will fall to no enemy, organic or synthetic. Colony founded 322 CE, population 260 million, capital Polos. Gus Fring does business there. Orbital distance 0.9 AU, orbital period 1 Earth year, radius 6,271 kilometers, day length 39.6 Earth hours, atmospheric pressure 0.84 Earth atmosphere, surface temperature 23 degrees Celsius, and surface gravity of 0.95 Gs. Let's see what they want us to do. Night Valian says, best ones are either the Mako or the side quest system from 3, but both could use a lot of polish. I don't think you were here when we did Starflight, were you? If you were, I apologize, but the Mako, I think, is the closest to sort of the inspiration. And I will say, like, I respect the fact that this game simplified it a lot, because I think generally the right call for most cases. I always wonder why I wind up empty. Yeah, no assault rifle, please, but I could really use my Black Widow. But yeah, I feel like sorry, I just want to... Okay, so for some reason this isn't modded again. Sorry, I'm completely sidetracked now. The weapon weight might be tempting because of what it does for the power. Anyways, yeah, I think in general games tend to benefit from more simplification, particularly when they're sort of secondary considerations. So if you think of it, one thing I sort of feel about the Total War games, although I've gotten into them more than I did before, is that they're sometimes a little confused about what they want to be. It feels like the strategic map is very involved, but the main reason you want to play that game is for the real-time battles. It's not to say that there isn't something to be said for like the maneuvering and all of that, but there's the question is what's sort of driving the bus. And you can contrast that to Civilization, where, if you do battle, it still takes place on the strategic map. XCOM, it's very clear that it's the tactical battle that's the thing that you're really focused on, and that the strategic is quite simple and your decisions are fairly limited. So generally, I think games tend to benefit when you simplify matters. But to a certain extent, I also sort of feel that the interesting parts of exploring a planet, particularly an unknown planet, are sort of gone. So while the Mako, I know, is a sort of its own legend at this point, I do sort of feel... you know what? I think I am going to go for the ultralight materials. I don't know. I kind of feel like there were some better opportunities. I don't know. Roads not taken, and I'm not a game designer, so I don't know how to fix them. Also, let me take the moment to introduce those of you who are not familiar with him. Night Valian, who is a streamer. I've had the pleasure of watching him play Outer Wilds. I originally found him through Lucifer Within Us. I don't know. Actually, we were talking about Victoria Tran. So when I told you that I was emailing her about something, that will probably be going live relatively soon. So then I can stop. Then I can stop being cagey about it. My apologies for not being a little more. My apologies for not being a little bit more forthcoming, but it's on its way. Sorry. He was playing Lucifer Within Us, which is a game that I am very fond of, and I actually feel was quite unfairly treated on release. I think it's not... So I can definitely see why people might be disappointed that it didn't have more, sort of more to offer. I won't lie, like, I would really like to have more things happening, or I would, as with most games, I would like to play more too. But I'm actually very impressed with Lucifer within it, as it is. But that's where I found Night Valiant, and following up on that wonderful game, he played Outer Wilds, which was a delight. And then I've actually picked up some new games from him as well. But yesterday he was playing Trine, and or was it yesterday? Or was it the day before? I'd actually forgotten that I completed Trine. It's the sequels I haven't played. And that was wonderful. It's one of the rare cases I've sort of remembered how much I enjoyed playing a game, watching his stuff. So definitely a streamer you want to keep your eye on, particularly if I stream too early for you and you always feel disappointed whenever you come in and I'm finishing up. He's somebody who I think you'll have a good time hanging out with. I'm debating as to whether or not I want to go down the stasis route or pure biotic. Let's go stasis. Use 2 powers in a row, giving the first power a 30% chance to cause no cooldown or increase the... I kind of prefer consistency. And Tali, I think it's pretty clear we're going to do energy drain. So increase shield restoration rate by 50% while draining shields, barriers, or powers from synthetic enemies. That seems pretty good. Or just overall the recharge speed. I think in this case, we'll boost the shields restored. Puzzles will continue until morale improves.
Shepard, about 72 hours ago, the reactors at adjoining Turin-Asari fuel depot went offline. Scans of the station are cold. It's deserted.
What happened to the troop station there?
Unknown, but no fuel means no fleet presence in this theater. The enemy will operate unchecked. I need you to get in there, find out what's going on, and get those reactors back online. Captain Riley's on site doing preliminary recon. She leads one of our top engineering teams.
We'll get to the bottom of this, Admiral.
Good, hack it out.
Commander, Corporal Nyrek reporting. Captain Riley is on point waiting for you.
Yeah, that's something else when there's a red circle around the guy and you suddenly draw your weapon and are pointing at them. I'm like, oh, I guess I gotta shoot him.
How long have you served in this outfit, Corporal?
3 tours. Been through thick and thicker. The captain always sees us through.
Stay sharp today.
Always, Commander.
Confirming. Toxic radiation cutting access to most of the grid. Survival in hotspots, not possible.
We need a radiation workaround, soldier.
On it, ma'am.
Captain Riley? Commander, it's an honor.
Commander, Captain Riley has me scanning the facility. It's a dual reactor system, so you'll have to break up into 2 teams.
Roger that.
The fuel rods for both reactors need to be unlocked before we can initiate a restart. Your route is blocked. Captain Riley's man is working to clear the obstacles.
Understood, Lieutenant.
Got it, Captain.
Good work, Coslow. I'll take it from here.
So when they say split into 2 teams, can't I just
We're facing an unknown enemy here, Captain.
bring more people?
Ready your team to hit reactor 2, Captain.
Sure.
Ready your team to hit reactor 2, Captain. Got it. We'll cover you till you're clear.
Oh, this is where I'm supposed to go. Oh, is this... So, am I just going to have to direct my team towards... I have a feeling this is going to wind up being frustrating.
Team 2 moving out, Commander.
Good luck, Captain.
Something's wrong here. It's too quiet.
Like a tomb.
Yes, exactly.
Just stay sharp, people.
Directional guidance error.
So I kind of thought the idea was that I needed to build a bridge over the radiation. But it doesn't seem to be the case.
I have a visual on the fuel rod control, but radiation is blocking access.
Same situation here. I'll find a way to vent the area. This looks like ventilation control.
Should do the trick.
Radiation clearing. Console now accessible.
Let's unlock those fuel rods.
Well, thank goodness I needed to move around that. That was really worth my time to have the insta death. Sorry, I'm just annoyed.
Power is restored. System ready.
Fuel rods unlocked here. Wait a minute.
Commander, Captain, checking movement in your areas.
Defensive positions. Enemy inbound.
We're ready for them.
Riley, status.
One casualty, but we're clear here.
Warning. Coolant leaks detected. Reactors 1.
One casualty, but we hated that guy, so it's all good.
I can see it. You both have to seal all the moderator tanks.
I see the reactor 2 tanks moving to seal.
Tank 1 is sealed and stable.
Patching seems to be working. Only one more to go here.
So I can't remember, Night Valley. Did you say that you'd played the whole trilogy or just the later games?
Riley, you in position?
Affirmative. Awaiting your word.
Initiating restart.
Commander, Captain. I'm reading a lot of movement. Headed your way.
Incoming!
Enemies pouring in.
They're coming in from above.
Ah, that's shameful. Sniper rifles are melee weapons, don't let anyone tell you that. I guess in fairness, they did say from above. Oh, Jesus. I gotta work on the aim.
Commander, we're being overrun. Position indefensible. We're not gonna make it.
Hold tight. One of my people is coming.
Roger that.
Tally?
I'm on it.
Hello. All right, and it's got a barrier on it.
tracking some movement toward the pickup point. Finalize the restart, then we can rendezvous there.
Will do.
Let's take a minute here and see what's inside the area. Oh, come on.
Restart is complete. Reactor fully powered and operational, Commander.
Did I just run through the reactor room? Doesn't exactly seem safe.
Commander, you saved our asses. My team is in your debt.
Job well done. Report back to the shuttles.
Right, I'll admit, I like it when these ones are short and
Good
sweet.
work down there, Shepard. Without that depot, the entire theater would be at risk.
What are the odds the Reapers will be back?
I'm allocating a task force to maintain and defend the facility. If the Reapers come back, we'll be ready. I read Captain Raleigh's report. It says she and her team wouldn't have made it without you.
I'm glad I could help.
I'll keep you posted on new developments. Hack it out.
An N7 mission? Sorry, my King Brutus, I'm not 100% sure what the differences are, but I don't know. Like I said, I like them short and sweet. All right, the Alliance First Fleet. The First Fleet was stationed near the Charon Relay when the Reapers invaded the Sol system. By the time Admiral Hackett issued the order to retreat, its size, once the largest in the Alliance Navy, had been cut by half. Commanding Admiral Innes Lindholm made the painful decision to use a tenth of the fleet's remaining vessels as cover so the remainder could escape. Her gamble paid off as the First Fleet limped out of the relay to rally with the rest of the Alliance forces on the run. Updated, the SSV Agincourt was one of the many Alliance ships that saved the colony world of Elysium from pirates and slavers during the Skyllian Blitz in 2167. In order to stay with his vessel and crew, its captain refused promotion after the Blitz. N7 is what I just did. Optional is kind of a better way to explain it. Okay, cool. The SSV Leipzig was the first Alliance frigate to field test the Thanix cannon, a compact version of the Reaper weapon developed after the Battle of the Citadel. The Leipzig's captain was so pleased with the results, she gave her unconditional recommendation that the Alliance begin mass-producing the cannon as soon as possible. Updated, this fleet lost a third of its vessels protecting the Council during the Battle of the Citadel 2 years ago. Unfortunately, the Alliance did not have the time to rebuild the fleet to its previous strength before the Reapers invaded. Alliance Fifth Fleet. The Fifth Fleet became famous across the galaxy after spearheading Alliance forces at the Battle of the Citadel. It was guarding Arcturus Station when the Reapers attacked. After a bloody and desperate battle, Admiral Hackett gave the order to retreat, sacrificing the entirety of the Alliance Second Fleet to give the Third and Fifth the chance to escape. The Fifth Fleet's engineers are busy repairing the damaged vessels, grimly anticipating a return to Earth and revenge against the Reapers. Updated, the original SSV Hong Kong was destroyed in the Battle of the Citadel when its captain threw her ship in front of a blast meant for a dreadnought. The ship's frame was later melted down and incorporated into the framework of a new frigate rebuilt as its successor. Updated, this fleet lost a third of its vessels protecting the Council at the Battle of the Citadel 2 years ago, and unfortunately the Alliance did not have time to rebuild the fleet to its previous strength before the Reapers invaded. Updated, some smugglers were surprisingly helpful to the Alliance by finding desperately needed military equipment. Updated, a pair of entrepreneurs were persuaded to switch from creating financial programs to advanced weaponing targeting VIs and to sell them to the Alliance just above cost. Asari. Dr. Jalise. Dr. Jalise, the Asari scientist found on the research station in the Silian Nebula, was working on a paper that argued nanocircuitry could solve complex behavioral problems in commercial VIs. The doctor's theoretical work seems to be supported by data in the Crucible's blueprints. She is now head of the department that builds the weapons circuit boards. The Crucible, advanced starship fuel. Helium-3 used to power a vast majority of commercial starships. Chemical engineers on Psion added experimental measures of compounds to the gas to make it a more efficient fuel for ships traveling long distances. One of the new formulas is used in ships transporting major loads of material to the Crucible, speeding up the building process. advanced power arrays. The advanced power relays are 15. Advanced power relays. The advanced power relays are 15 kilometers of insulated wiring connected to switch boxes that regulate the energy flow. Installing the relays in the Crucible will prevent catastrophic power surges from overloading its systems. Yeah, I specifically thought of you, so I did it. So it's worth mentioning, right? Like, I was really enamored of the Galaxy at War little mini game. I thought it was kind of neat that you had this other. So I actually wish more games would do this, where you sort of have these different experiences and you've built a world. I think Mass Effect in particular is very well suited to this type of experience, because Mass Effect is a big world that there's lots of things to do in. And I think we were talking, like, if you couldn't have an RPG, what genre would you want? And I think a lot of people were kind of warm to the idea of a naval combat game, you know, a strategy game. Although, of course, in Stellaris, you can basically make any science fiction, you know, world that you like into a science fiction game. The only thing I didn't like was that because it decays over time, once, like, I really put a lot of effort into getting to 100%. And it was really clear that after I put that, after I put that effort in, it would like go down over time. So when I stopped playing Mass Effect for a little while to do Lucifer Within Us, obviously I still felt the need to go in. And so it ceased to be this opportunity for me to sort of play the commander of this galaxy-wide resistance, and it more became a chore. And it sort of felt like a way that BioWare could kind of keep me thinking about Mass Effect 3 and making sure I'd come back to play the game. Ultimately, I sort of felt that it was a way to try and hook me in rather than something interesting on its own. But with that in mind, I really do think this is something that we hopefully see more of. I know, like, the time... So there was that iPad game too. I actually played the iPad game, but I don't think I connected it to my account. And it's not available anymore. I'm trying to think of another game that did this. It escapes me. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's something really neat about the idea of being able to explore a world, not just through different games, but through different experiences. Because I think being able to, so, you know, I actually, there's a way that people talk about mobile gaming which I really don't like. The idea of it being an inferior type of game as opposed to another type. So I think anything you would have played on like a Nintendo DS, you know, once upon a time, is the sort of thing that you'd play on mobile now. And I don't know about you, but I really like playing it on my DS. I'd actually still, I should probably charge it up, but like I played The World Ends With You, which I thought was great. I think it, especially with the control schemes that had, I also like Professor Layton, but I like anything that sort of seems to be adjacent to Sherlock Holmes. Yeah, I don't know, like, it's not just that there's really, first of all, there's really good mobile games. Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery, Grindstone, Civilization 6, and XCOM are on mobile now. And I know you may not consider them mobile games, but if you define mobile as being bad games, then I agree with you that they're bad games. It's just not an interesting definition. Plague Inc. started on mobile, and obviously the PC version is enhanced. But I think this is just it, right? The experience that you expect on something like a tablet or a mobile phone is different from what you expect in front of a TV or a PC. I would actually argue that even the expectations that you have in front of a PC or a TV are different. You don't see very many real-time strategy games on consoles, for example. And I really think that there's an opportunity to see how different worlds work and different perspectives based on the type of device that you're playing on. Megan Bruto says, you will admit you used to have multiple mods to put Mass Effect into Stellaris, and you like how BioWare managed the readiness rating, though, because you can use either the app and or multiplayer. That is true, actually. So I should have been a little more careful about that, because clearly I thought I was only going to be using Galactic Readiness, but we're due for a session, so I should reserve judgment. Night Valiant says, you think Dragon Age Inquisition tried something like this? That I need to check out then. And I mean, it's BioWare again, so it seems to be in the air for them. I don't think they did anything like that for Anthem, but hope springs eternal. Once upon a time, you're a slave to the Nintendo gods. You have Diablo 3, LE, Switch. Oh, neat. I actually kind of think I'd prefer the changes they made on Switch, because to be honest, I actually don't really like picking up a lot of the trash loot. And I think the thing that they did for the Switch version to avoid more inventory management is that they essentially reduced a lot of the low quality weapons to gold piles. I actually think I would prefer Diablo that way, but I don't have a Switch, so. 100 years since you played Dragon Age Inquisition. Haptic Optics Array. The Haptic Optics Array is an experimental computer user interface. Cortical implants allow users to see screens projected in front of them. A user's eye movements are tracked, syncing to hand gestures as they sift through data. While disorienting at first, people using the optics array report increased efficiency, and the technology has been adapted by several engineers for use on the Crucible. So it's kind of like Minority Report, but not exactly. The multiplayer mode has no impact on the single-player game, and there are no exclusive multiplayer achievements. Oh, okay, well, never mind. Turian. Turian Spec Ops team. Guard Captain Vidanos heads a special operations team that distinguished itself in the war on Tetris, tracking down Turian separatist leaders opposing the hierarchy. During the war, the separatists rammed a ship traveling at FTL speeds into the heart of Tetris's capital. Vidanos' unit experienced their worst fighting in the Diluvian wildlands, unwelcoming Martians with a population deeply sympathetic to the separatist cause. So I'm going to guess the optional mission does not provoke conversation.
Commander.
All right, so I have all the assets in this region. So I think I'm going to do the furthest out and then move in. Hopefully we'll have a nice stack of goodies for the Citadel.
I found something.
Nice. Is it Quarians? Typical hydrogen-helium gas giant, the planet serves as naval resource for fuel gathering and magnetic field discharge. The planet is surrounded by a band of 7 large moons that form the necklace, a reference to the legendary jewel owned by an ancient Asari queen for which Quarians was named. Its orbit places it within the Sun system's frost line, where the gas giants do not normally form. For this reason, the planet is believed to be an extrasolar capture. The alternative, that its orbit is decaying, is a horrifying prospect to the tourism and immigration boards of Nevos, since they would be in the gas giant's eventual path. Orbital distance 2.48 AU, orbital period 3.9 Earth years, radius 68,541 kilometers, and day length 17.9 Earth hours. Always happy to find credits. So there's one other thing here. I'm gonna guess it's probably a fuel depot, but first discovered by Asari pioneers in 430 CE, Nevos is a vibrant garden planet and home to a thriving Asari colony. That might have been when the Republic... No, Common Era, sorry. That's the Middle Ages, not... No, Middle Ages. What am I saying? It's definitely not the Middle Ages. I thought for some reason that it was... BC, so I was like, oh wait, that might have been when the Republic was written. Sandy beaches and romantic twin moons fuel a bursting tourism economy, while practical and secretive corporate masters are handled in spiraling arcologies built along towering cliffs. Even though it has been colonized for centuries, Nevos feels a frontier away from regulation and oversight. Consequently, a number of influential political lobbies have established sizable presences on the planet. Colony founded 430 CE, population 677 million, capital Estella, orbital distance 1.6 AU, orbital period 1.8 Earth years, radius 7,134 kilometers, day length 19.7 Earth hours, atmospheric pressure 1.07 Earth atmospheres, surface temperature 23 Celsius, and surface gravity of 1.11 G. All the details of Mass Effect still amaze me. They could have half-assed so many details of planets in the Codex. I agree. I think the Codex probably would have felt hollow, but I am actually impressed that they bothered to. It's not just that they bothered to like write up the planets, but I actually like that they have some consistency as far as certain features are concerned. So even though it's something that only a fraction of players are going to encounter, well, sorry, a lot of players will encounter it, but they won't necessarily engage with it. They still actually bothered to put something together that seems like a credible... I have no idea where this third item is. I'm going to try and run it. There we go.
Faster than light jump successful.
This will be a tight run, but I think we can make it.
Evasion successful.
But yeah, I like the fact that even though it's something that few people will encounter, it seems like they actually bothered to get some of the details down. Like, you know,
Signal confirmed.
The sizes of the planets, the certain effects that you would see, knowledge about how planets form and certain conditions under which they can or can't exist. I like the fact that there is a and even little things too, like, you know, we were in the Argos system and everything was named after some kind of a Greek myth. So, you know, the Argos itself is of course the ship, but you also had the Gorgon and whatnot. So, you know, some of these things are going to be based on actual, I'm pretty sure at least there's a couple that are based on actual star systems, or maybe not star systems, but actual like things that have been observed. But I don't know, just it's neat that they've taken the time to sort of create this world that only nerds like me are going to wind up taking the time to read out. They give the planet statistics that we could quantify. They had people sit down and rate details for every planet. Yeah, I mean, the one thing I do feel bad about, and I know in the original Mass Effect I actually think I spent time reading more planets. So obviously I'm not reading the details on planets that don't have resources. So even then, like, I'm leaving a lot of this on the table, but I have a feeling I'd be testing your patience if I went too far down the road of reading every single entry. So Dakuna, the Elcor homeworld, Dakuna, overflows with natural resources protected by law, from large deposits of precious metals to vast forests. The Elcor themselves live in rich grasslands near the equator. The majority of Dakuna's settlements are tucked within this belt, as the conservative Elcor feel little desire to build outside their comfort zone. The twin capitals are for migrations from the wet season to the dry season, a tradition made obsolete by modern technology but still observed. Sorry, King Britta. You've bought me so much coffee over the time I've known you through this stream. I feel like I should not be rewarding you with ejecting your beverages. I should be providing you return beverages. After the destruction of the Elcor Navy, Reapers moved into in their ground troops to occupy the cities. This has taken longer than most civilized worlds, as the Elcor have spread out into smaller, distant settlements, reflecting their preference for close-knit family communities instead of densely packed cities. Population 2.35 billion. Population estimate is pre-invasion. Capitals Seren, Melvoin. Orbital distance 1.1 AUs. Orbital period 1.1 Earth years. Radius 10,387 kilometers. Day length 68.4 Earth hours. Atmospheric pressure 1.02 Earth atmospheres. Surface temperature 29 degrees Celsius. And a surface gravity of 4, which we kind of knew ahead. You just missed saying the emotion of your voice. Thanks. I do know. I wasn't sure. It was a last minute thing, so I wasn't sure what emotion to say. I don't know what emotion I communicate when I'm reading lore, so I'll let you fill that in the background. I really need to get some water, but I do want to finish my work in sort of this area, so I'll try and get this done. But wet and dry system, that's how we do seasons where I live in Australia. The first mission in Ultan, Dakuna's... By the way, my King Brutus, did we ever talk about, like, I'm half Australian. I've not been as an adult. I'd really like to, but there have been a couple of references from Australia, partially not through Uncle Cranky, but the guy who mods for Outworld, which have come up every once in a while. But I don't know if you've ever been in the same room. Maybe you are the same person. I don't know why I brought that out right now, but there you have it. I'd really like to visit. Probably now's not a good time, though. Here you have rain, mosquitoes, and construction seasons. I know you said you were in South America, Night Valiant. Is it? I don't know if you said where. I wanted to say Brazil, but I actually think that's another viewer. And obviously South America is a large continent with many countries. I think I used to be able to name all of the countries inside of them, but I probably couldn't do it now. The first moon of Ultan, Dacuna's moon, was a century in the making. Elcor leaders felt resources for space travel could be better used on their homeworld, and it took decades of persuasion to secure project funding. Archaic harvesting stations that recovered helium-3 from the moon's regolith were still functioning when the Reapers invaded, and the Elcor station there were able to flee the system. Orbital distance 625,369 kilometers from Dacuna. Orbital period 44.45 Earth days. Radius 2,822 kilometers. Day length 44.45 Earth days. Atmospheric pressure trace. Surface temperature minus 40 degrees Celsius and a gravity of 0.24 Gs. Rain season is November to April, May, where we further define cyclone season from January, April to May. This is just the dry season. You know what one really shameful thing is? One of the most vivid memories I have of Australia is a giant fruit building.
Reapers eluded.
I'm tempting fate doing this, but I gotta...
Faster than light jump successful.
Gotta get the coverage. Also, I'm occasionally peeking at chat, so I'll find myself on a collision course with... There it is. With a Reaper, and catch it in the last minute. Alright, the Reaper might catch up with me a little too close. Yeah, I can't do that. I'll try and hit him.
Reapers eluded.
From another angle. That's also probably going to be too... Well, oh, no. There's... I forgot there's another one.
Faster than light jump successful.
Doubtful, but let's see.
Evasion successful.
I might have had a couple of muscles tensing up. It's more effective than Outlast 2. Oh, does it stop me from... It looks like there's a limit on number of saves. I'm curious how large my...
I found something.
My Mass Effect 3 folder... Oh, Jesus. Okay. Hyatania. Hyatania serves as a bastion of research for the Asari, boasting multiple observation outposts, glacial drilling stations, and educational institutions. While the planet's average temperature hovers near freezing, the equatorial band contains oceans and many freshwater rivers. Xenobiologists of all stripes have often visited the planet, as its expensive facilities were a haven for the life sciences. The Reapers destroyed Hyatania's spaceports and its uniformed defense forces. As with other Asari planets, the Reapers forced the heavy biotic population into surrender through threats of massive retaliation rather than assault by husks alone. Colony founded 735 CE, population 119 million, population estimate pre-invasion. Capital city Port Larama. Orbital distance 0.8 AUs, orbital period 1.1 Earth years, radius 11,245 kilometers, day length 19.2 Earth hours, atmospheric pressure 1.35 Earth atmospheres, surface temperature of 1 degree Celsius, and surface gravity of 1.39 Gs. Thankfully it isn't cyclone per year, just when the ocean currents and the wind are right spots to support cyclone formation off the coast. And even then, one forms it might never make landfall. I know people got really annoyed with the fact that I wouldn't reset the Reapers. I just really hate wasting fuel. I really like getting everything done in one go. It's rescard. We've had a couple close calls like that, but I think I've got, like, I wouldn't bet money on it, but I have a certain degree. I've gotten a bit of a feel in terms of what the window is. So, like, basically what happens is you hit investigate. These things still keep moving in on you. So if they're, like, right on top of you, you're almost certainly going to die when this window comes up. It's actually my one complaint with the way that the investigation goes. I think it's kind of neat that you do get pursued through these systems. I think it's appropriate for the third game, which is dealing with the Reaper invasion. There's something just really interesting about reintroducing the possibility of danger in a space exploration game. I think in this case here, I'm going to have to take the fuel. Right, so there's still something for me to check out. But with that in mind, like when you're paralyzed with the menu doing the transition, it feels a little like a cheat. Ysilium is a minor rock planet that has not quite cleared the ring of debris at the edge of Lorope's orbit. It is believed to be an extrasolar capture. For several centuries, Ysilium supported a succession of mining colonies. First iridium, then titanium, finally light metals like bauxite and alumina. The planet was abandoned long before the Reaper invasion. Orbital distance 38.3 AUs, orbital period 164.1 Earth years, radius 2,601 kilometers, day length 31.5 Earth hours, atmospheric pressure is trace, a surface temperature at a balmy minus 100 degrees Celsius, and a surface gravity of 0.47 Gs.
Evasion successful.
All right, we have our plunder. I don't know if we've satisfied all of the side missions that I wanted, but I don't think there's anything else that I can explore right now. So here's what I'm gonna do. I did say that I needed some water. I actually have. I got myself like a little dessert, which I don't normally do, but it would be better warmed. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the Citadel. I'm going to take 30 to 45 seconds to refill my water. It's probably not a bad idea to stretch and just kind of take care of things. I encourage you to do the same. But what I'm going to do is I will also turn on the oven and warm that thing up. But what I'll do, I'll set the time, like I'll get everything ready to go, and then I'll come back. It's going to be like just a couple minutes that I need to warm it up, but I don't have the oven on, so.
You're cleared to dock, Normandy. Do you need ground transport?
No, thank you.
I'll handle it. Yes, Commander.
You have to ask, how did Rannoch go? Oh, that's right. I automatically assume you're in like every Mass Effect stream. Rannoch was really interesting. I did chafe a little bit on the boss fight. I kind of felt, I mean, it might have been that I was just reading the situation wrong. But I felt that there were a couple of moments in it where I was kind of punished for not knowing a specific detail and made to like have a big reset. Like the fight with the Reaper, which should have felt like a really significant and interesting moment, definitely felt a lot more like a chore. But the story moments were great. And we did wind up producing an alliance between the Quarians and the Geth. So sobviously we don't have Legion anymore, but we do have Harmony because I'm a big softie. Anyways, I'm glad you're happy about that. Guys, if you can just give me a quick minute here, I won't even put up the away screen, but I am going to take a quick minute to turn on an oven and refill my water. I'd love it if you'd stick around, but I do maybe encourage you to take a quick second and do a stretch and maybe get some water for yourself, because I know it sounds weird, and I don't mean to mother you. It's actually really good if you do that. And if you're like me, you probably have been sitting a lot more than you necessarily want to lately. So, see you all in a little bit. And you might have pissed off the neighbors as to how loud that celebration was. Well, the VOD will be... the VOD is still on Twitch. And... joke's on you, Physio in 20 minutes. Yeah, okay, Mad King Brodos is the one person who doesn't need to worry about that. But I did not know that the Alliance was hard to miss. Okay, guys, I am going to get some water. We can talk about this when I'm back. But yes, please take care of yourself. Now would not be a bad time to maybe go to the bathroom, stretch or whatever. I won't make it too long, but I am going to get some refreshment for myself. See you guys in a little bit. I'm not even turning off the microphone, so you can hear me swear if something goes wrong. All right, I didn't really think this through because obviously I need to turn on the oven, but the thing doesn't instantly warm up, so I might have another interruption, but I'll try and keep it brief. Thank you for putting up with me.
Thank you again, Commander. I appreciate the assist.
I'm going to expect to thank you every single time I come on the Citadel, sir. There's sometimes the visuals...
Have you discovered a way to run FTL spaceships without an EZO core, Private Talavi?
No, ma'am.
Then consider this a serious assignment. Intel's expecting a Cerberus raid.
Cerberus? Cerberus?
They're a problem?
I thought we were fighting Reapers, ma'am.
Give it a week. You could be.
I think that dialogue's started to repeat. Actually, Mad King Brutus, I should mention, I think the... so, unfortunately, there is one VOD which seems to have been lost. I uploaded it basically on the last day that it was available, and I suspect probably what happened is that Twitch did not finish uploading it before midnight wherever they do the reset. And so basically YouTube said that there was an error in the upload, and of course when I went to Twitch the video was gone. So unfortunately there is one episode that is missing. I don't believe it's Rannoch though. The standoff with... Are you talking about Udina?
Spectre status recognized. Please, 1 moment, please.
Right. I think we let Ashley kill him. Yeah, I was actually finally starting to warm up to Udina, and it just turns out that he's just a straight up bastard the whole way. So, so much for my efforts at empathy. I don't think there's anything for me here, but you can take a look. Finally starts to get along with Shepard, and then he goes and sells out. Well, like the thing for me about this game, like, and I guess what I'm trying to do with this is to try and figure out, how much is intended and how much is going. Okay, let me do some of the dialogue here, and then I'll try and explain. What I...
Who are those people you were with?
Bunch of mercs from Omega. Signed on with them when I heard they were making a hit on Cerberus. Should have studied the job longer.
Who are those people you were with?
Okay. Bunch of mercs from Omega. Signed on with them when I heard they were making a hit on Cerberus. Should have studied the job longer.
So I've hit a little bit of the I'm on kind of the downward slope of the concurrent views, so I think some of you will tolerate this. I talk a lot about this game, and a lot of the time that I talk about stories and games, I run into the territory. I guess, like, for lack of a better term, I am very conscious of the fact that I can very quickly fall into wanker territory when it comes to discussing stories. And I don't mean to be too harsh one side or the other, but obviously there is a type of reaction to stories that you can develop, particularly if you've gone to university, where you sort of nitpick every last little issue, or you want to talk about, how it is, participating in some kind of problematic narrative or something like that. And what I don't mean to suggest is that this is necessarily a bad way of engaging with stories that you find interesting. Because in the end, there are going to be certain ideas that are reflected in the stories that we tell. And I suppose I would put it to you this way. I found my classical studies courses at university very interesting. So much so that I've actually been exchanging emails with my old classical studies prof on a couple of things. And so I feel that if I can gain some insight into the ancient world, that the ancient Greeks become interesting, and I can read Plato in a new light because I have been able to read those works a bit more closely and to study them closely. Why is it specific that just because I happen to like this group of people that you can't do a similar sort of study and gain a similar sort of insight in other areas? But with that in mind, it's also it becomes very easy to just start needling away at everything. So one thing that kind of discouraged me when we finished playing Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, I felt that there wasn't as much of a defense. So there was the case that someone made that basically the story can be read as long as you find a boyfriend, your mental health issues are cured. And I suppose I can see why someone could think that. I also don't necessarily think that that is the most satisfying or the necessary conclusion from having played that game. And I think there's a difference between being able to point out that sort of thing and that sort of thing necessarily being the case, right? There's sometimes a principle of charity at play. If you've got two versions of an argument, one version sort of makes the person sort of seem irrational, and the other one is a more sympathetic view of it, it is generally more helpful in a dialogue to assume that they are making the logically coherent point. And even if they're not, generally you learn a little bit more if you do that. So the reason why I did that big preamble is that I sometimes feel like I'm in the danger of running into this when I talk about Mass Effect 1 in particular, but Mass Effect overall. That if you think about Mass Effect, it is kind of a bit of a fascist story. Or at least you can see why it has sort of these fascist sympathies. Because, yeah, exactly, Night Valian. Like, I think at this point it's a little harder to sustain that whatever is found at the end of the first Hellblade is a cure. But again, I want to try I want to try and adopt the perspective of the people, bringing it up in my chat, even if I don't necessarily agree with it. So the thing about the first Mass Effect, right, is when you go in, you, a high-ranking military officer, cut through the bureaucracy. Every diplomat is basically an obstacle. Anderson is much more, Anderson is the good guy. Udina is the bad guy. If only we could just get things like democracy and due process out of the way, i.e. the Spectres, wouldn't that be so much better? And it's really interesting, right? So it could be, is this the way Commander Shepard looks at the galaxy? Could it be that this is just the overall message I should be taking from it? And I mean, like, at the very end, right, you've got this great moment, you come out of the wreckage and you strike a defiant pose, and then you talk about how you're going to fix everything. And the very last shot of the game is like this basically propaganda poster of Shepard at the end. And it's great stuff. I loved it. I live for this sort of stuff inside of games. But obviously, it is the sort of thing that if I were to see in like Canada, I would be really worried about where my country was going, right? If I were to find out that specters existed in Canada and that they were portrayed the way that Shepard is at the end of the game, like, I would sort of wonder what was so wrong that this became necessary. And I would probably be very uncomfortable with the existence of something like that. So, the fact that, like, it's probably fair to say most people are sympathetic with Anderson in the first game. And so when you decide for humanity's representative on the council, you probably choose Anderson. And I thought things were interesting when it shows that Anderson, a military man, is incapable of managing the council. Because again, right, like, this is, I hate taking the, well, okay, I don't hate doing the modern stuff. It's just I know I sometimes lose people when I talk about the modern day stuff. But, all right, lads, I have to head off for physio. You'll be back in about 30, 40 minutes. We will be here, Mad King Brutus. Thank you very much for hanging out for the time that you did. I might also have, the oven might be ready. But you can consider the United States, right, where you've got an increasing role of the military and you've got an increasing sort of gutting of the State Department. And this isn't a 2016 thing. This is something that's happened over both Democratic and Republican administrations. But the big problem with this is that sort of the world order is built on both things. Even James Mattis, who is the Secretary of Defense at the time that he said it, was, for every dollar you pull out of the State Department, you spend 2 in bullets for the Army. And so I thought the fact that Anderson sort of did not succeed as a counselor was this nice little redemptive moment for Udina, in the sense that he kind of has a role, and it ceases to be this pure antagonism of the military who you should just get out of the way. And again, this is no disrespect to the military. One of the reasons why people are doing those jobs is that they're generally very good at what they do. The thing is, though, is that the Army is not necessarily there for statecraft. It is a part. You need to have a military in order to back up your diplomatic efforts. But it's not the only part of that, of the factor. So I sort of thought, especially with Mass Effect 2, Udina had a better place, and it was more of a recognition in terms of how I sort of think the Mass Effect universe works. And I mean, as Mad King Brutus points out, I don't think Udina is a bad guy, but conflicted ways of thinking and how he wants things done, and ultimately he does what he thinks is right, and so do you. But of course, the big challenge here is that at the end of Mass Effect 3, even though you can come up with some justifications for his behavior, I sort of think in this case he's taken on the antagonist role again, and so we're back to a world where if only we would just give the military all the authority, everything would be great. So anyways, I'm probably overstating the case against Mass Effect. I love these games. I am having a great time with them, but it's been very hard for me to sort of shake that first impression now that we're in the third game. Like, it does sort of seem to have been carrying on. And again, I mean, BioWare know how to tell a good story, and they're smart people working there. I'm not entirely sure they are unaware of some of the themes that they're touching on. So if you can just give me a second here, guys, the oven almost certainly has been ready for a while. So I'm going to pop something in it. I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes, so there's going to be one other interruption as I take it out. But then we'll be able to properly get our Citadel stuff done. I'm sorry for the interruptions. Is he still playing cards? Well, not really playing cards. He's sitting at a table. We're pretending it.
I know. You don't have to say anything, but I'm about to make my comeback.
Yes, why does it not surprise me that James is bad at cards?
You just gonna stand there and watch?
Well, I would participate if the game would let me.
You're kind of making me nervous, Commander.
I'll admit.
Son of a bitch. I'd ask him to deal you in, but I think they're free. I believe those are my... Come on.
Red Dead Redemption to me is basically a very expensive poker game.
Son of a bitch.
I found a Prothean sphere on Gay Hinnom. Contact the Alliance and tell them Commander Shepard asked them to pay you for it.
Yes, thank you. I'll call them right now. Thank you, Commander. I've gotten food for my family, and for some of the others who were trapped here too.
Ah, shit. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, speaking of money, how about James take some of his gambling money and help him out instead of giving up Prothean artifacts?
Hey, I've assumed full control of Eclipse, and we're committed to moving forward with Aria.
I believe those are my credits. About time.
Hey there.
Oh, it's you, hey.
Your parents get here yet?
Nope, it's okay. I mean, they'll get here. They always keep their promises. The next shuttle was probably just late.
It's the end of the galaxy. What's the worst that can happen? He loses his pants. Well, that's a tragedy for me. But
I look forward to meeting you.
you know, I was really interested in this little bit of dialogue here, and I was really disappointed once it started looping, because it obviously goes right to the edge of her sort of realizing it's very likely her parents are not going to come back. I suppose to a certain extent, I naturally hope that the parents do survive and that you get to see that. But in the end, it doesn't really settle one way or the other. And to a certain extent, I mean, that's what happens, right? In cases, you know, you're ultimately left to wonder. And there maybe isn't the day that you wake up and say, you know, they're dead. And you sort of define your life between those two events. And I mean, in some cases, you know, you can sort of backtrack when the event would have happened, and maybe you can come up with those easy divisions. But there are some cases. Oh, that's my timer. I'll be back in a second. Terribly sorry about that. No more interruptions. But yeah, I think the big drawback is because I'm in a story game, I am sort of waiting to see some kind of resolution to that other than this loop of her insisting that her parents are going to come back. This guy we've already dealt with. But I still haven't found out what the best...
Excuse me. I'm Commander Shepard. If you promise to be careful, I've got something for you.
A Reaper code fragment. Yes, I can use this to try to predict their strategic processes. We might be able to save a few worlds with this, Commander. Thank you. No, I know what I said. Divert forces to the new coordinates. Trust me. We may not be able to stop the Reapers, but I think you can predict their movements now.
I love it. Okay, this is great. I can't wait to hear an Elcor again.
Urgently, human, I must speak to you on behalf of my people.
What is it?
Holding sorrow, Dakuna, my home world, the Reapers have come. holding sorrow. Our warriors are under siege, but your forces can rescue them. Urgently, please. All the other races have turned us aside.
How do your people fight?
Proudly, with VI-assisted infantry. Our soldiers carry heavy weapons into battle mounted on their backs.
Oh, please let me see
Amidst
this.
pride and shame, our enemies have called us living tanks, as well as names less flattering.
I'll take the Normandy as soon as we have time.
Relief. Thank you, Commander. Small hope. Perhaps we can evacuate some of our civilians when your forces arrive. Anxiously, I will remain here for news. Please hurry. The Kuna burns.
Sorry, I thought that'd be a little bit longer, so I'm just going to finish chewing and then I have a couple thoughts.
I have excellent news. Your daughter's paperwork has been processed.
What? You said it was impossible. How did you pull it off?
Well, I talked to a few friends, called in a few favors, maybe even stayed up a few nights. I wasn't sure I could pull it off, but everything's in order, and your daughter leaves for Thessia tomorrow. A caretaker will travel with her to ensure she reaches her relatives back on the homeworld.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Why don't you go spend the time you have left with her? I'll take care of the rest.
All right, so I don't know if this happened in Mass Effect 2. I remember in Mass Effect 1, they very pointedly did not show the Elcor walk away. It's pretty clear that I just think they either didn't have the time or didn't want to animate it. That one we got to see turn around, and I'm trying to remember if in number 2 you ever got to see an Elcor move. But now that they've introduced the idea of walking tanks, I really kind of want to see I really want to see an Elcor war. We're probably just going to tell each other that we don't have anything.
Hey, Shepard. I have to admit, the place feels safer with you here. Everyone's walking around in a daze, or in my case, limping. And I wonder if we'll ever be the same. These are dark days for all of us.
I think this is all the same.
Thought you'd be in the hospital.
If I'm breathing, I'm working. Probably the worst I've ever been hurt. Fitting, I guess, given the state of the galaxy. But if Cerberus thinks a few slugs is gonna keep me out of action, they've got another thing coming.
All that time you were working for Udina, did you ever suspect?
Always rubbed me a little wrong. Still, that traitorous bastard upped me. Probably made me for an idiot. I guess I proved him right.
He's dead and you're still here, Bailey.
Thanks to you. If you hadn't shown up, Udina and Cerberus would be dancing on my grave.
No time for rest. Good luck, Bailey.
All right.
Yeah, you too, Shepard.
So I got to try and find a better way of eating stuff without doing it directly into the mic. I don't obviously I don't have the camera, so nobody gets to see what my streaming setup looks like, but I hello.
I want all remaining files secured and marked for Tentron clearance.
Oh damn it,
only.
this is going to be the Asari ambassador. I got it.
Commander Shepard, thank you for coming.
Did you find something?
The Council has ordered a full review into Donald Udina's activities. We're still piecing together his coup attempt. But that isn't why I asked you here. The situation is growing urgent for my people. We're aware your crucible is still missing a key component.
The catalyst. Do you know something?
Not exactly, but there is a artifact on our homeworld, Thessia, known only to highest levels of my government.
What is it?
With any luck, it's a means to help you locate the catalyst. The artifact is kept in a temple located at these coordinates. I've ordered a scientific team to meet you there.
If this artifact is so important, why keep it hidden?
Every species in the Citadel has its secrets, Commander.
But this
Such
one,
as
in the wrong
invisible
hands,
cop
would upset
cars.
the balance of galactic power. The Reapers are doing that right now.
Which is why I'm bringing this to you.
I appreciate the help.
It's you who will be helping us. The matriarchs are growing desperate. For the first time in our history, Thessia is vulnerable. For all our intellect, we're outmatched by Reaper firepower.
I'll do what I can.
Whether you know it or not, you've become the sole ray of hope in a very dark night. Goddess be with you.
I completely forgot that that was where the... So I just saw that Udina's office opened for the first time, so I don't think that'll close off any options, but I do think if you do... at least somebody had suggested to me that if I don't do side missions before certain points in the story, they get closed off. So I've tried... That's one of the reasons I've been trying to do the side missions in addition to just not having to do multiple trips back to the Citadel. Commendation, Captain Riley. Captain Riley, an N7 operative, has been nominated for a Commendation of Valor for her actions in Sion. Approval from a Spectre would fast-track the award process. I don't think there's anything from that I really want. Well, okay, the sniper rifle stuff. So yeah, extended barrel seems to be a no-brainer. Patients in Huerta Memorial Hospital are dying from new and unfamiliar types of chemical burns. This is a problem for military personnel fighting both Cerberus and Reaper adversaries. For a small fee, the Solarian Special Tasks Group is willing to share data on burn treatments from a research facility on Surcash. To maintain deniability, any information obtained in this matter should be attributed to other sources. I already thought that I got this, but... And an Eclipse covert ops team is willing to sell jamming technology they recovered from a Geth station. Deploying these jamming units on Presidium could hinder enemy forces. Again, I believe I've already gotten this, and I don't think there's any advantage to me buying it again, but it is only 1,000, and if I happen to run into these folks, I can give them the... I don't know, I get the rewards again? One thing that does kind of interest me, seeing as we've, now that I'm thinking of it, so we've had our encounter with the Geth and the Quarians. We're going to be helping out the Asari, but what interests me is we haven't heard from Cerberus for a while, and that seems to be... I don't know, it seems weird that they sort of fall back, other than for maybe story purposes.
Now arriving at ward level purgatory.
How do I know he's angry?
I recovered the Code of the Ancients from Dakuna. It's waiting for you in Bay D24.
With shock and joy. Really, this is wonderful news. Thank you, human. Sincerely, this will greatly aid our people. With sincere gratitude, thank you, human.
Anyhow, enough about my armor. Let's find the gang and celebrate while I'm still here. Where'd you park?
I took rapid transit.
Come on, you have the fanciest ride on the Citadel. And I saw that new paint job.
I sold it a couple of weeks ago.
What? But you love that car.
I know.
You never shut up about that car.
I know.
This is probably out of all of this little side dialogue. I know I've said this like every single time I walk by, but I think out of all of the little side bits of dialogue, this is my favorite in the Mass Effect series. I don't know why. It's just something about that particular moment that that really got to me.
I always thought this place would be cool if it didn't involve so much walking.
If you're in pain, I could carry you.
Pass.
You just introduced me as your personal assistance mech.
Yeah, well, it was the only way to get get you inside.
But you know I am not one. Why deceive others?
You don't really want to introduce yourself as an AI with Reaper-based code. They would lynch you.
That would be an inefficient way to render me non-functional. Your turn. Counselor Tavos.
Hot. But points off for attitude.
Shaira the consort.
Hot, I guess? Can we stop this? You're creeping me out.
Dalatras Linron.
Ew.
Your turn. Counselor Tavos.
All right.
Hot. But points off for attitude.
The banner of the 1st Regiment. That should put some steel in their spine.
I do like the Joker and Edie bits. I mean, I think Edie gets some really good lines in general about it. Sleepbringer! I didn't want to say anything while I was in Kite's channel, but it's great to see you again. I know you are not streaming a whole lot, but I cannot let you go by without at least a special mention. So guys, for those of you who don't know him, Sleepbringer is one of the first people that I wound up meeting on Twitch. I think one of the things that I can say about one of the things I can say about him is like there've definitely been lots of shifts in terms of sort of my social network as far as Twitch is concerned. And this can sometimes mean becoming involved with groups of people, you know, potentially falling out with groups of people, not hearing from groups of people and all of that. And there are a few people who I've really come to appreciate in terms of being very sort of steadfast, people who it didn't necessarily matter, you know, what my concurrent viewers were at a certain time or what team I was involved in or whatever. They've always been people where it doesn't really matter. When we catch up, it's a chance to see someone, you know, that we used to get along with or watch each other for a while. And Sleepbringer is 100% one of those people. I probably can't do him the same justice that Kite did. Kite was mentioning at his prowess in fighting games. But I mean, he's such a gentleman. It's, you know, he will demolish you in Street Fighter V, but he'll be a gentleman about it. So I don't mean to say, it's a little bit like Eyes of Sin. This is someone who's clearly made enough of an impression that I think it is worthy. It's worthwhile to talk about them and give you a reason to check them out. And it doesn't necessarily mean that if you follow, you're going to see a stream that comes up consistently. But I also tend to think that that's probably one of the reasons why you do want to follow people like that, because you're not really going to know for those rarer occasions in which they do stream. It was kind of amusing. There was someone who was trying to make an impression on a bigger streamer that I know, and somebody had mentioned my stream. It was very kind of them because, you know, there's a certain point where for a partner or somebody who's looking to grow their channel, you do tend to notice that they tend to host up. They host to larger people so that they in turn get noticed. And that broadcaster was very kind enough to take the time and point out me and why they like my stuff. But what amused me so much was one of the people who kind of wanted the credit for supporting me but didn't want to do it. Said someone's like, oh, okay, you know, I'll follow you the next time I see you online. And I'm like, how are you going to know I'm online, dude? So with that in mind, right, I obviously can't make you follow Sleepbringer, and fighting games may not necessarily be your thing, but I do want to say, you know, Sleepbringer is someone I'm always happy to see him in a chat, not just my own. Really, really nice guy, and definitely somebody who I want to support as long as he's willing to keep hitting that start streaming button at whatever frequency. I'm definitely gonna hang out whenever I can, and I'm going to encourage others to do that. So, anyways, I was delighted to see you in Kite's channel, but I'm also very happy to see you here.
Yes, make it required reading. Blood from the Shadows, Path to the Justicar, all of it. I have Matriarch Athea's backing on this. I want every Asari maiden thinking with the mind of a huntress.
Oh, that's very kind of you, Sleepbringer. Are you a Mass Effect fan at all? I don't think we've ever had this conversation.
so clean and squeaks. Anyhow, thanks for the drink. But why'd you drag me out here?
Oh, they're going to talk about the meds again.
Yeah,
Looking for work.
might as well. What you got?
Oh, so which ones did you get through, or has it just been that you've kind of played one of each and but haven't gotten to the only watch streamers play it? Gotcha.
Shepard, you made it. Come have a drink with me.
You're looking happy.
You had it right. Yesterday can't change. Tomorrow, we might all be dead. Today is what matters. I'm not wasting it.
I wouldn't have thought a club would be to your tastes.
You don't have to get all hot and bothered to appreciate graceful dancing. There's an energy here. There's light. And Purgatory serves the best drinks. Here.
Here's to fresh beginnings.
And a better tomorrow. Thank you. For everything. I'll see you back on the Normandy.
I don't think Arya is going to have anything to say to me, but we'll take a minute. Well, she'll have something to say to me. She won't have anything new.
Look who's here. The Blue Suns, Blood Pack, and Eclipse are in my pocket. I'll send them to war when you're ready for them. Is there anything on your mind?
What exactly have I acquired?
An army that's willing to fight dirty, to do the things your respectable militaries won't do. Eclipse mechs and Vorcha legions are excellent candidates for vanguards in any ground offensive. Well worth the little song and dance I had you perform, I'm sure.
Whatever you say, Arya.
Don't be a stranger.
I don't know if you've seen this in other streams, Sleepbringer, but one thing that I've really enjoyed about playing, I guess it's because I become a little bit more, it's a little bit like movies, right? I haven't worked in games, but I did work in movies, and there was that point where I went from seeing movies as sort of these artifacts that fall out of the sky and I enjoy, and instead realize that there are people who make them, and that there are very specific things that people do to make movies be the way that I enjoy them. So the revelation I really liked about Purgatory, I'm absolutely astonished how well they bamboozled me on this, but like to take a look around and see like the models on the lower level are not even textured, and they're combined in with basically these cardboard cutouts which are sort of moving in like a little circle to simulate movement. Like once you know to look for it, it is obvious, it's a Potemkin village, but I'm not going to tell you how many times I was in here and did not realize that the 3D models didn't have textures on them. That time I found immediately after kind of going to the edge here and realizing they did the same trick. But it's fun. Like I like stuff like that because it just shows me how well the developer understands. Yeah, like the thing that I like about it is it shows how well the developer understands what I'm going to be feeling and doing in the moment, that they know that they can get away with something like that.
Please select a destination.
It's
One moment, please.
some people might point that out as like a flaw or whatever, but to me it's sort of saying, if you're, I guess here's the thing, if you are able to create the impression of a wider world without having to dedicate the resources to like realizing every single blade of grass, that just says to me that you have a very good understanding of what the player is experiencing. And while it may be a very impressive technical achievement that you're able to realize this fantasy world down to a blade of grass, I think to a certain extent, being able to create the illusion, being able to create the fantasy is probably the thing that matters. And obviously, BioWare's probably some of the best people to do this sort of stuff. So, it would make sense that they have a particular command of it. I watch a lot of Red Letter Media because they dedicate a lot of their content to talk about things like that in film. Oh, actually, I've never heard of that, so... actually wanted for a while to do more breakdowns of some movies because I wind up talking a lot about cinema on stream, and I don't really think that's always the best lens for games. So if you want my view on it, is this. Games are naturally going to be products of the environment in which they're made. Films are very dominant in our culture. Generally, motion pictures are. Our ability to understand stories in very short periods of time through visuals are the product of the thousands of commercials that we watch over our lifetime. But if all that games can aspire to is being interactive movies, I think it will always be an inferior mode of expression, because in the end you're not taking advantage of what a game can do. You're sort of riffing off of what a movie can do. So I always feel a little uncomfortable. So this is the difficulty, right? It's not just that I've watched a lot of movies, I've worked in movies. So it's going to be a particular frame of reference that I can draw from and I can use to be able to explain an idea. And yet, in some ways, I would think the ideal game is one of these things that sort of defies that kind of understanding. A really good example of this, I think, would be Civilization, in which any conversation I'm going to be having about Civilization will have nothing to do with camera angles or story beats or whatever. But that's clearly not the only kind of game. We just finished, Outlast 2, which relies on a lot of cinematic techniques and uses them very effectively. So it's not this, this vow of chastity that game developers need to make that doesn't, that means you can never use cinematic techniques. It's just in some ways it can sometimes be a crutch if you don't sort of leverage some of the advantages that come from being able to do something inside of a game. Then I sometimes feel like the game isn't reaching out as far as it can. So, I actually don't mind that you have these little passive moments where you're doing dialogue, because, Mass Effect 2 gave me the thing that I haven't been able to do in any other context in any other game, which is to give the big dramatic speech at the end, just before you go into battle. I love that part about Mass Effect 2. It's one of the most clear memories I have of the first time I was playing that game, and how incredible that felt. So,
Excuse me. I recovered the rings of Elune. They're waiting in Bay D-24.
That's wonderful. Thank you. My people will treat this miraculous find as a call to support their local hospitals.
But yeah, anyways, to say, so I've wanted to do I've wanted to do some more film stuff, because I think I've done a couple of movie nights with people, and the discussion always turns to really interesting places. And one of my favorite things to hear from people is to say, oh, I want to watch that again after, I sort of say a particular detail about the movie that I noticed, or, oh, I never noticed that. So like I watched Terminator with Johnny Big Time, and there's something that I noticed in it, and he has apparently told everyone he has talked to about Terminator about that since then. And that's great. I always want that whenever I read a review for something, because it makes me enjoy the media that I watch more. I don't like the kinds of reviews which are, meh, that thing wasn't very good. Like, I think being able to engage seriously with it is the better form of criticism. That doesn't mean that you always praise it. It just means that you engage with it. And, I'd love to do that with movies, but I know if I do it in the middle of the stream, one, people sometimes just come in for the game. They don't want to see me, do a scene from Psycho. But number two, there's obviously the copyright concerns. So I need to find a way to do that better.
Yes, I'm seeing increased turnout as well. I may actually make it through this war.
Just standing there watching that poor Asari writhe on the ground while I was monologuing about film.
Something else?
We've done
What's going
most
on
of
with the
this.
Crucible?
That project is crazy. Freaking huge. And all these brilliant minds are working night and day trying to figure it out. I wish you could see them.
Heads down, piecing it together. It's something to see. We'll get this Crucible built, Shepard. And then, we'll win this thing. I feel it. Do you feel it?
Yeah, sure. I feel it. And I'm counting on you and everyone there. Get it done.
Believe it.
It was interesting to meet Bryn. How is she?
She's great, actually. It's good to see her work without the distraction of having to worry about the colony.
And you and her?
We're having a baby, Shepard.
Wow. Congratulations.
Wasn't exactly planned, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm gonna be a better father than mine was. Do the whole thing right. It's,
One more thing to fight for.
You got that right. Bryn wants to name it after you.
Really?
Yeah. Shepard.
That's nice.
Yeah. I'm gonna talk her out of it. No offense.
None taken.
Good.
I know I've heard this before, but it's kind of fun. And yeah, Sleepbreak, I mean, for me, so, you know, I think one thing that's really clear from Steam forums is that being able to play games doesn't mean that you're able to make games. And I think it's possible to enjoy something without really understanding what goes into making it. So, you know, I think most people playing Fortnite are not necessarily going to know that the same engine that powers Fortnite made Mass Effect. Obviously, an earlier version of that engine, you know, or you could say Jedi Fallen, or I mean, really, just pick pick whatever game you want. And you know, you maybe even things like, you know, if you really like EA games, I do. The fact that I think it was Need for Speed The Run was the one where Need for Speed moved on to the Frostbite engine. But what might be interesting is how many subsequent games suddenly had these interesting vehicle moments inside of them, probably because of all of the things that they added to their, you know, their technology, or EA added to their technology for making games. It opened up more creative avenues. So in some cases, knowing all of that stuff does not necessarily, like, it's not necessary for enjoying the game, but as I'm sure you appreciate as well, like, I find that sort of stuff really interesting, particularly when it's like when you know a new feature was added to a very commonly used tool, and you get to see how people made interesting creative choices with it, or sometimes make really lame ones. So, like, if you've watched, I'm gonna get burned at the stake saying this, but Deus Ex, right? This is a game that, like, everyone speaks with these hushed tones, you know, the saying, you know, every time someone mentions Deus Ex, you know, someone else installs it and plays it, whatever. You know, no, I'm not going to say it's a bad game or anything like that, but that's one of the first ones to use Unreal Engine 1, and it feels like every floor has a mirror shine on it, and it's really clear they wanted to show off the ability to do reflections, but boy, is it really weird to go through that game and just see shiny floors everywhere. And they're not the only game to do that, but, you know, Deus Ex is probably not a bad example because, you know, it's one where to hear people talk about it, you'd sort of think that it's this, you know, this flawless masterpiece, which it certainly isn't. It's a good game. It is not a flawless masterpiece. You know, to sort of know that in the end, these people probably got as excited about features as I get. You know, if there's a new update for an iPhone, you know, I'm probably going to wind up using it. But yeah, it's kind of just funny to see little things like that. I mean, obviously, I'm sure, you know, no shortage of technique. I mean, I don't know if RTX is necessarily going to do that because that's like something that you turn on or off. But I mean, maybe you'll just have all of these moments. It'll be like maybe some of the games that come out post RTX are going to seem a little bit like, Deus Ex in the end, where, you know, we now have...
So what's going on with you? You still like what you're doing?
Sorry, I'll
Things
shut
are
up
good.
for a bit.
I'm good.
Still not tempted to come back to the Normandy?
Always tempted, Shepard. But no.
So, you working on the Crucible?
Don't get me wrong. I'm smart, but not that smart. Hackett keeps me busy, though.
How's he doing?
Holding up. If they make old guys any tougher than that, I'd like to see it.
I'm glad we had time to talk.
Just talk rants are best part of your stream. I thank you.
You gotta take the moments when you can. So true. And Shepard, thanks again for getting my people out alive.
Take care, Jacob.
You too, Shepard. I'm thinking about you out there. Stay safe.
I think the only thing for me is that if it's a strategy game, it's a little easier for me to do certain motions, whereas in the case of Mass Effect, so much of what you do is driving the story forward. I basically have to put the game on hold for that sort of stuff. But yeah, I mean, like, again, it could be that with the ability to do RTX, right? It's, you know, the ability to sort of do these, to do reflections in a way that is still actually computationally very expensive. It just happens to be that, you know, you now have a whole bunch of cores sort of dedicated to doing that work. It may be that, you know, we'll look back at this generation of gaming and we'll be able to really clearly see, oh yeah, this is when the reflection stuff came in. You know, take a look at all of these, you know, all of a sudden mirrors are all over the place, or oh, look at all these windows. They really wanted you to know that they were able to do that. So the Tuno, I can see clearly now. I can stretch freely now. The brace is off. Congratulations, Mad King Brutos, and welcome back. We still have a little time. So speaking of strategy games, have you had a chance to try Crusader Kings 3? No, unfortunately, Sleepbringer, that was a little bit of a sore spot for me. So it seems to be that Paradox has gotten big enough now that they want to... They're like... I'm noticing this is a little bit like in movies. Nobody will actually tell you no on the chance that you wind up being someone big and that you hold a grudge. But what I have noticed is that I'm not getting emails replied to anymore. So, and that was a shame because, like, these are people who I had reached out to before and had some kind of rapport. But it seems to be pretty clear that I'm going to have to get my concurrent views up before they will consider me for keys again. And so it's not that I've declared an oath of enmity against Crusader Kings 3, but I'm also not particularly interested in paying full freight for the privilege of broadcasting it for other people. And so, like, the thing is that I know some people would like to see me do that game, but I also know some people would like to see me do a lot of other games that I do have access to. And so what will likely happen for me is that I will probably wind up getting the Xbox Game Pass at some point. And I know that that gives access to the base game of Crusader Kings 3, at which point I'll give it a try then. But so it's, I'm very conscious of the fact there's a really terrible genre of streamer rant, which is like, oh, they didn't give me a key, look how much they suck, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, there should never be an expectation of a key. I'm happy to have had the time that I did, and the time that I put into streaming Crusader Kings 2, which was a lot, does not entitle me to some like lifetime supply of press keys, right? They're going to decide what works for their marketing strategy. I'm going to decide what works best for my broadcast. But given the fact that I'm trying to get through more games like Mass Effect 3, like Outlast 2. Outlast 2, I spent over a year waiting to play that game. So given the fact that there's a lot of stuff that I would like to, I'd like to work through, it's really hard for me to sort of justify bending over backwards. Well, maybe bending over backwards is maybe a little extreme, but it's a harder one for me to sort of say this is something I need to be doing right now. So yeah, honestly, stuff like Game Pass. So I don't have Game Pass yet, but EA Play is, I have EA Play Pro. I love that program so much. There are so many games that I've tried out that I haven't. And I suspect Game Pass will be very similar. And more importantly, Game Pass will probably give me access to Fallout 4 now that ZeniMax is in the Microsoft family. So there's a lot of stuff I'm looking forward to on that. But again, because I already have a big stack of games to play, I didn't necessarily want to jump in on the Game Pass already because that's just going to aggravate the problem. The brace will be back on later this afternoon when you go to the surgeons for another follow-up. You just hate wearing the ball. Okay, well, at least you have a temporary reprieve.
I came across this treatment plan at a chemical plant. Could it help?
Treatment? What is... I've never seen this kind of process before.
Huh. Probably experimental. It's a long shot, but let's run some tests and see if it might work for our patient.
Now, I should be asking you a more important question here, Sleepbringer, which is I think you had an interest in Crusader Kings 2, but you always sort of expressed a bit of hesitation as to whether or not it was the sort of thing that, at least when we'd last talked, it sort of seemed to be something that you were sort of on the fence as to whether or not it was, the sort of thing that you wanted to go all in on. Like, you obviously have the capacity to play Crusader Kings, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the time you spend learning it is going to be time well spent. And I know that number 3 was, intended to sort of overcome some of those concerns. And so I'm curious how you found it. Because obviously just because I haven't experienced it doesn't mean I think everybody else shouldn't play it.
Any improvement?
Yes, the counter agent is finally starting to kick in.
Yes, General Corellius should make a full recovery. He's already awake and responsive.
Maybe these treatments were something different. Played a few hours, did the tutorial, which turns into a normal game. Okay, so it's a little bit like in Hearts of Iron 4, I think they start you off with Italy, and Stellaris, I know they do the same thing. So I know their tutorials have, at least from my perspective, have gotten better. The thing is that I'm kind of comfortable with Paradox titles now, so my idea of what is an easy start is questionable, let's say. All right. I think I'm closing.
Welcome to Serta.
Be safe.
I think I'm closing down my my list of tasks.
Recognized. One moment, please.
Had a better understanding of the normal flow of the game after the CK3 tutorial than he did. Yeah, well, one of the biggest problems with CK2's tutorial was that they put it in the game and then they never updated it. And so it got to a point after a couple of years of DLC and updates. The Karshan snapping eel is a powerful predator that will attack fish larger than itself when hungry.
We appreciate your visit.
I think one of the big shames is that
Thank you, EarthClan.
it could have been very helpful. But basically because the game developed to a point where excuse me, where they actually removed certain features in the tutorial, or say that would have been mentioned in the tutorial, or basically like you would be told to do things that didn't really make sense to do anymore. The educational value of the tutorial sort of asymptotically approached 0 as the game went on. And it's tough, right? The reason those Paradox games survive so long and get updated so long is that they continue to improve them. They continue to do free patches along with DLC. They expand out the game. And if you have this cost each time you want to add a new feature that you need to update the tutorial in order to to bring it in, this all of a sudden makes it a lot. You've now added a cost each time you want to iterate on the game. The only thing I can say is that if they're telling people like me to take a hike for because I'm not big enough anymore, they are actually going to have to start thinking about how new players look at their games, and you can't always just talk to the people that have followed you for years. To bring them in. So I think I know with Stellaris, they've made a pretty clear decision to update the tutorials accordingly. And I would be surprised if CK3 didn't take the same route, because in the end, I just don't think you'll have enough people continuing on with the game, after everybody's been raving about it. I don't really think you'll have the same sort of longevity that a game like that needs if you don't update the tutorial.
So what were you able to pull from the inscriptions? Really? Excellent. I knew they'd find something.
So there's maybe 2 things that I can do here, but I'll take a look nonetheless, because it's always nice to see opportunities.
Actually, I found a Cacliosaur skull preserved in amber. Maybe you could...
You're kidding? You're kidding? Seriously? Well, if the genetic material is intact, we could... We've got cloning facilities on Surkesh. Cacliosaur genes were remarkably pliable. Cloning might be effective. Really? And they're already riding the first units into battle? Well, that's great.
They didn't lose
don't
any
worry
time.
about that. It's how Cacliosaurs mark territory, and the Krogan don't seem to mind.
Actually, from that little side bit, one game I'd really love to do on stream is I'm loving some of Brutus's responses to what's happening in the game. Man after your own heart. You've tried to get into a lot of Paradox games, but I think CK3 has done the best in terms of easing you into the core concepts. That's really cool. I actually think...
I got your message, Miranda. Is this about your sister?
Shepard, I need access to Alliance resources. I can't say any more. You'll just have to trust me.
I don't like secrets, Miranda. Just tell me what's going on.
I can't, Shepard. If that's a problem, I'll go.
Don't. Trust is a little hard to come by right now.
Of course.
You'll have your access, Miranda, but I don't like the sound of this.
I know, and thank you. It means a lot.
That's not the only thing you wanted to talk about, is it?
No. I need to tell you something. Confess, really. It's been eating away at me.
Confess?
When I headed the Lazarus Project to rebuild you, I wanted to implant a control chip in you as a safeguard.
I think you mentioned this.
I did. There's more to it. The elusive man stopped me.
Sounds like it would have saved him a lot of trouble.
Maybe. He didn't want to interfere with who you truly were. Something that just obeyed orders. He wanted Commander Shepard. Installing the chip might have ruined you.
I understand why you wanted to. I was a complete unknown.
I've never had to deal with that many black boxes on a project. I felt blind.
Why bring that up now?
I fought against my father and his need to run every aspect of my life. He wanted total control over me, right down to my bloody DNA. After I got out of there, I couldn't stand by and let it happen to my sister. I risked my life to get her away from all that. Yet I didn't give a second thought to destroying your free will when I had the power.
This is what's been bothering you?
Yes.
Miranda, I lost 2 years of my life. You gave me back the rest of it. You could have changed me in 1,000 different ways. But you didn't. I don't know how, but you brought me back.
Thanks. But with so much being uncertain, I just wanted you to know I always regretted wanting that chip.
So one, this is really cool that they're actually dealing with that subtext in Mass Effect 2. I did want to take a minute here and respond to a bit of chat, though. So yeah, Mad King Bros, I've been loving your reactions to this so far. Sleepbringer's doing a really good job of articulating why I found CK... For me, it was CK2, but I'm glad that they've sort of leaned into these features. So you said, you've tried to get into a lot of Paradox games, but you think CK3 has so far done the best in terms of easing you into the core concepts. I think that shifting my understanding of CK from a Total War style game to a more like a leader RPG helped you become more invested. The CK3 tutorial does a very good job of simplifying how relationships in the game work and how important they are to the core of all the other goals that you might have. This scene is great if you're romancing Miranda's male shape. Okay, actually, this is one other thing I wanted to say too. The actress who plays, so I've now seen the actress who plays Miranda Lawson in another show. I might have seen her in other things, but I didn't recognize her. I did recognize her in The Handmaid's Tale. And so I am struck of just how much of her sort of her mannerisms and her features come through in Miranda. It's really impressive. Because Bailey does not look anything like Michael Hogan. And of course, Edie didn't have a body in Mass Effect 2. It kind of depends which characters you're thinking of. But I am actually quite impressed with Miranda in some cases, just in terms of some of the details that they pick up on. Also wanted to take a quick minute with, I'm also note because of Mass Effect's insistence on incredibly tight-fitting clothes and having, the fine posterior of its female characters in prominent view. I'm assuming, most of the audience will be quite fine with holding on this. If that impresses you when you say the name Seth Green, the first thing you picture is Joker. Well, I definitely recognize Seth Green right away. The thing was that I'd actually seen him in a couple of things where he's a bit of a bastard, so I actually really disliked Joker because he reminded me of Seth Green. I'm actually sure he's probably a perfectly nice person in real life, but it just happened to be that I'd watched him in a bunch of stuff where he... I really didn't like him, so I was like, this Joker guy, he's cramping my style. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But I wanted to engage with what Sleepinger was saying about Crusader Kings. So what I think really struck me about the Paradox games is how well the game mechanics seem to match the time that they're representing. So what I mean by that is, Crusader Kings takes place in a time when, the idea of a nation really isn't the same as what you would think now. You have your personal holdings, and a lot of your place in the world and a lot of your ability to do things is going to sort of rely on this very complicated set of relationships between vassals and lords. And, I guess if you had one tagline for the game, it would probably be heavy is the head that wears the crown. And you're absolutely right. Crusader King, Paradox games, the Paradox Development Studio games run in the Clausewitz engine. It is kind of a war game engine. So generally there's sort of this paint the map red and, take over everything intention. But Total War is all about the battles. You get to be the general. And if you do a battle in Crusader Kings 2, the game takes away all of that fun from you. It's just a bunch of numbers, battling each other. You don't really get to take the field. Well, your character gets to take the field, but you don't take the field and command the army. And so making the move from that can sometimes be rather disorienting. In the case of Europa Universalis, that really is sort of about the transition from the feudal system to the rise of the nation state. I mean, the 30 Years' War happens in the game, or can happen in the game, and the Peace of Westphalia is effectively where sort of the kind of the order that we've gotten and sort of the rights and the kind of the units that we engage with in terms of diplomacy were sort of worked out. And so, and then of course you have things like mercantilism. So you have figures like Colbert, and then eventually Adam Smith. You have these ideas, in the case of Europa Universalis, because you want to strengthen the state, the quote that you would take from that one would be Louis XV, l'état c'est moi. And I don't think it's a mistake that so many events in Europa Universalis are built around things that happened to France, from the 100 Years' War to Napoleon. I mean, I think it ends in the year that Napoleon... I don't know if it's Napoleon dies in exile or goes to exile. But that game really is about the state and increasing the power of the state. And in this case, you and I may not like mercantilism because we like low-cost goods and we like being able to, be able to buy things at affordable prices, lots of them, and have lots of variety. But in the case of the nation, particularly at that time, what you effectively want to do is you want to be importing raw goods, and you want to be getting all the added value within your borders, and you want to be exporting the refined goods. So you want to import lumber because that's cheap, and you want to export chairs because they're expensive. And then you want to put a whole bunch of really expensive tariffs on all of that, so that you can make sure you can make a lot of money out of it. And of course, this is kind of what Adam Smith was reacting to when he wrote an inquiry into the wealth of nations. So is it let me get the exact title of it. I know people call it the Wealth of Nations, but I believe an inquiry into the nature and causes of the wealth of nations. When you know that, right, like there's no real RPG element inside of Europa Universalis. It's no longer about you as this landholder with certain obligations to the king above you, but also being able to take advantage of your position against against other the people under you. That's all gone from Europa, because that's not what that period of time is about. Victoria 2 is a very old game in that one, but that's basically about the Industrial Revolution, a move from a cottage industry where you'd have someone like a blacksmith, and if your dad was a blacksmith, you'd probably be a blacksmith too, to this concentration of wealth, this acquisition of capital, the tremendous social disruption that comes out of that, and the ways that the world responds. Probably a little bit more relevant would be the following game, which of course would be Hearts of Iron 4. And in the case of Hearts of Iron 4, like, money doesn't exist in Hearts of Iron 4, not really. Your industrial capacity exists, and effectively, you will trade industrial capacity for resources. Those resources are ultimately turned into material to make war with. Your population effectively exists to get a gun put in their hand, and nothing like a chalk rant when painting Star Wars Legion models. Sorry, I am getting near the end of the rant. But that game has a much more well-developed combat system. It's got all of these, you can sort of give these general rules to your generals, and you can give these indications in terms of how you'd like your military to sort of function. But in the end, you're going to be making resource allocation decisions. Do you want to dedicate resources towards the development of the atomic bomb? In the original version of the game, the atomic bomb did absolutely no damage to enemy armies, as was an appropriate choice, because the atomic bomb broke the morale. It didn't kill, tons of soldiers. It killed civilians. It was the revelation of this awesome destructive power that brought about the end of the war. So what the atomic bomb would do in Hearts of Iron 4 would be, it would lower the threshold of the kind of capture points that you would need to take in order to make your enemy to capitulate. I think a lot of people complained about the fact that they would drop a nuke in an area where there were soldiers and they didn't see any damage to the soldiers, so they changed that eventually. Yeah, now it does kill manpower. That would make sense, right? But yeah, I mean, it's another one of these examples, right, where you wind up making a number of decisions, but they are ones about the era. Hearts of Iron 4 takes place over some of the smallest sort of periods of history. Like, the end of Hearts of Iron 4 is not after hundreds of years like in Crusader Kings 2. And really, you're going to be looking at time periods of hours in some cases, because of course that's going to be when your operations are taking place. And so what's interesting about those games is basically how they are representing a particular era in terms of their gameplay mechanics. Anyways, for those of you who don't play Paradox games, I'm sorry, that must have been very arcane. But I really wanted to engage with what Sleebringer was saying there, because it's been a while since I've been able to talk about that.
You can't keep beating yourself up over the past.
I usually don't. But this was important.
Some things you just don't have control over.
Guess my fancy genetics can't help me there.
No, they can't.
Okay. I hate to say it, but I should get moving. Thanks for understanding, Shepard.
Of course. And Miranda, this thing you have to do. Good luck.
Don't worry, Shepard. I always have a plan.
You know, Sleepinger, one of the reasons for that too is that there's a game that I really wanted to enjoy, but I felt it didn't quite hook me, and I thought it was really interesting the way a couple of okay, that's amazing. An action movie with Blasto 6 partners in crime, an Elcor and a Hanar. Oh, it doesn't kill manpower. Okay, fair enough. It's been quite some time since I played Hearts of Iron 4, so I would not be surprised if there's stuff that's been added in patches as well. But yeah, so the game's called Real Politics, and I do still want to give it a shot, but I think there's an interesting problem, particularly in World War II games, and we're not really friends anymore, unfortunately. But
yeah, the guys in Zakara did too.
I thought he was a bit unfair on this, but he sort of, I pointed out that there is a bit of a game design problem in World War II in the sense that from the perspective of a game, it is always more fun to play the Axis because World War II is something that the Axis did to us, right? And so if you want a game, like what is interesting about a game, generally when you talk about what's interesting in a game, you're going to use lots of verbs, right? I did this, there was that moment when I could have shot Udina, but I didn't. Ashley shot Udina instead. Verbs, right? No, not Mad King Brutus. Definitely not. I don't think we've had this conversation, that's for sure. But, and then so I said, this is one of the challenges, right? Is that if verbs are the thing that makes games interesting, it means that Germany, Japan, Italy, and Spain are the most fun. I mean, I guess depending on how Civil War is modeled inside of a game, generally are the most interesting ones to play. If you do something on a tactical level, storming the beaches of Normandy or something like that, then you're in a better position. Because you're playing a first-person shooter, right? You're kind of obligated to take an action. But if you want to do a game which involves the build-up, getting out of the Great Depression, being able to mobilize your nation for war, or potentially try to avoid war, which is what a lot of the Allied nations do at the start of that game, it can be a challenge, right? How do you convince someone that it's more fun to play someone who doesn't go to war in a war game? And so this friend had basically said that it's appealing to the worst parts of its player base, right? These are the people who always want to play the Nazis in historical reenactment, and there's a reason the stereotype of like, oh, I'm just really interested in that part of history is a little, it's, what these people are like. It probably doesn't require a lot of elaboration. But and he proposes some alternatives, something along the lines of like, well, they should make it so that the Allies can initiate the war or something like that. And I'm like, well, I would imagine saying that Germany had no choice, it was entirely Churchill's fault, is the sort of thing that I suspect somebody sympathetic with the Nazis might think. Like, I'm not entirely sure. One, it's ahistorical, which is fine because there are ahistorical things, and like you can do alternative history in Hearts of Iron 4, and they've expanded those options. But I'm not entirely sure that that's solving the problem. Am I the person who takes nations in Hoi 4 and flip them into weird ideologies? Fascist Australia run where I'm all... Oh, no, like that. I mean, they've expanded a lot of that stuff. you can do fascist Canada, you can do communist Canada, you can do democratic Germany. And it was through it was through the number of people who were playing Kaiserreich that made them decide to do that. So this is the thing, right? Like I'm a little conscious of that, and I find it interesting for the same reason of all the material we were talking about. It's interesting to see how game developers address that, if they address it at all. And what I found so interesting about Real Politics is that basically it ignores that essentially the more authoritarian your government becomes, the easier it is to make war. Like you can declare war without a casus belli. And because so much of that game, so much of what's interesting about that game is in fact the expanding your territory, taking over your neighbors, there is sort of this big incentive to turn your country into a totalitarian state as quickly as possible. And what interested me was the person who gave me the key, who was not the developer, it was someone responsible. They were actually busy talking about how, they quite literally said, it's like, well, kind of like in fascist governments, you can kind of get more stuff done quickly. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's what the game is saying. I just don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, like, it depends what you're talking. Obviously, China is capable of enacting tremendous domestic surveillance, something that hopefully would not be easy to do in a country like Canada or the US. And for, good reasons, I would hope. But I don't know, like there's just something about modeling the world as, centralizing power gets things done. That's that's a choice in a game. I just don't necessarily think it's the most interesting choice in a grand strategy game. So it's interesting to be able to contrast those two games. Like one of the reasons why I like the Paradox games is I think they engage with their time and they make some of the factors that seem to be true of that historical period interesting from a gameplay perspective, whereas Real Politics didn't really seem to. And that extends to Mass Effect, by the way. So like Mass Effect, right? What is it that makes Mass Effect interesting? You get to be the hero of a space opera. What is the thing I remember the most about Mass Effect 2 from that first time that I played it? The big speech you get to do before you go into battle. The dramatic climax of the movie, and I get to be the one who custom tailors that speech. And there's no wrong way of giving that speech as long as you, the player, are satisfied. And basically everything about Mass Effect that's fun and interesting is reinforcing this idea that you get to be and make this big science fiction series. All of your favorite science fiction episodes in one game, and you get to be the one who controls the story.
I pulled this from a Geth jamming tower. Maybe you can use it.
How the hell did you... Never mind. Tech like this, I don't care where it came from. I'll have my people run with this. When the war comes back here, maybe we can save more lives.
Oh, is that you're talking about the one at the end of the game, right?
Thanks again. If we can get it working, this jamming tech will make this place safe.
Oh, actually, because Brunos is talking about Australia and World War II, my granddad flew in the Air Force for Australia. I don't know a lot about what he did, but for some reason, one thing I do know is that on some of their runs, they would actually drop empty bottles over Japanese positions, because apparently they sound like screaming banshees when dropped from bombers, and it would basically keep people up at night, and like it would keep them from getting enough sleep. Yes, Bruno's is like, yep, that's Australian. There's no surprises for that story from Mad King Brunos, but I don't know. I like that fact.
Hello, Shepard.
Like I know one of his awards. So I was able to find him in the Gazette, like basically the paper of record for Australia, because he won I think it's the Distinguished Flying Cross. Like that is apparently no small feat. Like that is apparently, particular feats in combat. I can't remember the exact citation or that, but apparently he did something like good. Unfortunately, I was very young when he died, so I don't need to. Oh yeah. Unfortunately he passed when I was quite young, but. Heading Bed Chalk, thanks for the talk. Thanks for the great stream. Oh, I don't know if it was a great stream, but thank you very much for hanging out, Sleepbringer. It's a pleasure to catch up as always. Oh, no worries. I mean,
Really? That is wonderful news, my sister.
It happened so long ago, Mad King Brutos. It's definitely not something to be. I mean, it's old age. Died. I suspect perfectly content as one can be at the end. But yeah, it's nothing to say sorry for.
Of course. We can have ships at the colony in 36 hours. Do you need medical support?
No, evacuating the colony is more than enough. Thank you, Ambassador.
Ambassador?
I'm coordinating actions for the fleet while we're here, evacuating colonies, bolstering Turian defense lines. I think it was right here. 3 years ago to the day.
What?
This was where Saren's assassins fired at me. I'd just gotten to the Citadel. I didn't think I needed my barriers up. My mistake.
That's funny. Yeah, and honestly, Mad King Brutus, like, I don't know if you played Battlefield 1, but I thought they did a really good job with the Gallipoli campaign. I can't remember exactly what the name of that episode was, but I thought they did a really nice job of that particular campaign. That was, I think, in the credits. There's a song, the band played Waltzing Matilda. That was really good. So it's I like that games are sort of engaging with this stuff now, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with doing Operation Overlord again, but it's kind of something we've seen, and I think the fact that we're seeing movies like Dunkirk or Letters from Iwo Jima, or we see in Battlefield 2 that we find out about the Senegalese Tirailleur, or the heavy water program in Norway, basically the German atomic weapons research. Or that, we know about this, something like the Special Boat Service, like the fact that, listen, if you need somebody who's good at picking locks, it's World War II, you get your help where you can, and that means, like, the people who are good at picking locks who are available are sometimes found in your prisons. How you doing, Earth Daughter? It was in the middle of no man's land, had no tactical significance whatsoever. We just took it to rub it in their face.
Saren had assassins after you?
Right. I disabled
Speaking
the
of
Geth and found
memorials,
that recording that proved he was working with the Reapers. I went to Ilium and tried to inform the authorities, but Saren's mercenaries attacked me. I barely escaped. I stowed away on a Turian freighter and came out here. I thought I was safe.
You never told me about this. How bad was it?
Got me in the arm. They used polonium rounds. I was running a fever in minutes. It was the first time I'd been really hurt on my pilgrimage. I ran to the council embassy, asked for protection, offered the data on Saren. The Turian clerk called me Soot Rat. He threatened to have me tossed off the station if I didn't leave.
I wish that clerk could see you now.
He just did. That was him back there. I don't think he remembers me.
And you're assisting him in spite of that.
This war is too big for old grudges. You showed me that. We're at peace with the Geth. I can't waste my time on a Turian who made me angry. Besides, it all worked out. I made it to the wards. You found me. Happy ending.
And now the Turians will get the aid they desperately need.
I nearly reminded him who I was. Made him apologize, rubbed his nose in it. Maybe he and I both needed to grow up a little.
The difference is that you helped when it counted.
Thanks, Shepard. So did you.
That was a really nice little moment. I mean, so one, you know, I like how it ties into the arc of Tali overall, someone you followed from the very beginning. But that's one, a really nice story, and number two, particularly in the context of what you've just experienced with the Geth. I'm really curious how that dialogue goes when you face the other choices.
Everything looks so peaceful.
I don't know if it counts as commonplace in space, because, I mean, obviously Saren is not exactly the model of, you know, of upstanding behavior in Mass Effect. But you're right, like, that is a pretty horrible thing to do in general, let alone to a civilian. Anyways, I am at the 3-hour mark, but the thing is, I am also a little conscious of the fact that there haven't been too many missions. So let's see what we can do. So it looks, I think we've gotten through a lot of what I wanted to do at the Citadel. I also don't think it's entirely wasted time because there has been quite a bit of story development. Oop, looks like we've gone.
Jelix, the Asari homeworld, Thessia, is the core of the largest economy in the Milky Way. The planet's reserves of Element Zero are so vast that they affect its price galaxy-wide. Because life on Thessia evolved in an Ezo-rich environment, the world is home to a wealth of both biotically active and Ezo-resistant species. Travel to the planet is strictly controlled, but smuggling remains an issue. Thessia is host to varying republics instead of a single government, and although each maintains a formidable military, it is notable for having long been free of internal or external wars. The Asari are renowned for their cultural and political dominance, and they excel in ambassadorial ventures. They have a strong presence in Citadel politics and galactic policy. However, it is the unfocused political structure of their homeworld that has left the Thessians unprepared for the current conflict.
So the plan is, there's a couple of tensions that are running through the stream right now. So I do want to do more of the game if I can. I am also conscious of the fact that I have a Morrowind episode that I would like to do. And I figure probably the Mass Effect crowd is going to like Morrowind as well. So here's what I think I'm going to do. So I need to find the Obelisk of Karza in the Hades Nexus, and I need to do the Elcor extraction on Dakuna. I've also not found the Cerberus ciphers yet. But basically, we've gotten through a lot of the side missions. So if my only option is a story mission, I think I have to end it here. But
I'd like to request a transfer to a zone with Reaper, Sergeant.
This is because her brother is Cerberus.
I think I'll do better against the Reapers than Cerberus, ma'am.
And what combat experience against Reapers are you basing this on?
None, ma'am.
Outstanding.
But yeah, so basically if I can get a side mission in, we're good. If I can't, I think it's probably better that I start the Morrowind VOD sooner rather than later. But the good news is I'm going to do my absolute best to do another stream tomorrow. And it's going to be a different game, but one that the developer gave me a key for, and I think at least some of you will find interesting. Secret artifact, huh? Oh no, this is the priority mission. Now, here's the thing. Like, it says the Hades next. Okay, maybe I'm misreading this. Researcher needs the Obelisk of Karza to help with Crucible Project. Recover it from the Hades Nexus and deliver it on the Presidium Commons. Now, we've already exhausted the Hades Nexus. So let's, you know, for lack of better options, let's start back in the Hades Nexus and see if we can figure out what the deal is. I know I'm going to be pissing off the Reapers doing this, but at this point, I kind of need to...
Reapers eluded.
I think I'll do Sheol, Piamat, Hoplos. I'm actually not all that I'm not all that certain that what I'm gonna find, that I'm gonna find anything new here, because it already says 100%. Shepherd is Australian. Sorry, 1 second.
Faster than light jump successful.
Sheer fact, Hushi enjoys messing with the Reapers. Yeah, this is a good use of fuel.
Evasion successful.
Although I am intrigued by that planet name. Compass, never mind. Alright, so we wasted a bunch of fuel for no reason, but that's fine. We said fuel was cheap, so.
Faster than light jump successful.
So, what I will do, we'll see if we can figure out how we can get that artifact another day, but what I will do is head to the Elcor homeworld. Where are we? Doesn't say what system. Damn. Okay, you know what? I'm just going to do a quick Google search. Cylean Nebula, it looks like. And if you can just bear with me a second here, I got an email. I'd just like to get a quick peek in. Sorry about this. I know this is like terrible dead air, but this is a somewhat important email, and I'm really just trying to get a read on what's happening here. Okay, cool. Very sorry about that. I'm curious about something. Okay, so you can't do any kind of a marker. That's fine. Unfortunately, I I still need a little more information, it turns out. Where is it? Dakuna is located in the Fonte system in the Sylean Nebula. It's weird. It marks some of the stuff, but not all of it. And obviously we got to Dakuna, but I just couldn't remember. Well, nuts.
Evasion successful.
Probably stop licking your brush when you paint. Water is starting to look like some really bad coffee. You can do what works for you. Whatever brings you joy. Okay, this is interesting. So I scan it. What?
Reapers eluded.
Okay, hang on. Elcor extraction. The Elcor have requested an emergency extraction for warriors and civilians trapped on their homeworld of Dakuna. Search for survivors on Dakuna, rescue them if possible, and return to the Elcor ambassador. So we're here.
Faster than
Okay,
light jump successful.
tell you what. This is clearly something I need to figure out for myself. So I did, yep. Yeah, I mean, it's possible that there's another step that I need to take, but this is what happens when I go there. There doesn't seem to be any other action that I can take. But given the fact that this was like supposed to be my little extra bit, here's the way that I'm thinking about this. There's probably a very simple answer to it. I'm questioning, given the amount of time that I might spend scrambling around trying to figure out how this thing works, I think it is better that I just accept that this was more dialogue driven, fewer missions, and that on Friday I'm going to have a whole bunch of missions that I can do at the start. And instead what I will do is I'm going to set up the stream for the Elder Scrolls Morrowind. So just to give you guys an idea of what's going to happen, normally on Tuesdays, essentially what I do is I have a vodcast. So this was originally intended for YouTube, but it's a little too, long for YouTube. But I've kind of continued on. So I started with the Elder Scrolls Arena. I've not really played the Elder Scrolls series before doing this, but I played the Elder Scrolls Arena with a Dark Elf Dunmer spell sword named Caius. And I basically continued on in the series with him. So we've done the Elder Scrolls Arena in its entirety. We've done Daggerfall in its entirety. And we are, I believe, on the 45th or 44th, 45th episode of Morrowind. Again, playing this the same time. And it's essentially the continuing adventures of the same character. And I play, so it's a little bit weird. I don't exactly role play with a Dark Elf voice. It's probably better to be said that it is Caius streaming his adventures, because I have a tendency to break the fourth wall. So normally this happens Tuesdays at 7 o'clock. There is a vodcast that goes up on here, and at the same time the episode is released on YouTube. The difference is that YouTube has better quality options, and so that is presented in 1,440 horizontal lines of resolution at 60 frames a second. And I've, for Morrowind, I modded it to Oblivion. Well, not to Oblivion, that's the next game. But it's been interesting. It's been a fun ride. And so I kind of feel... the reason why I'm not doing it on yesterday at 7 is that when I uploaded it to Twitch, at some point it stopped processing, and it really only told me that when I was ready to to go on to the I do that for the full episode, unless I'm reading a text or reading somebody else's voice. As long as I am taking the voice of the character, that is the voice that I use. So 3 hours of that. Yeah, so that's basically, so that normally happens at 7, because I had that processing problem. I uploaded it again last night at 7 when I thought I was getting ready to start, and it took until 1 o'clock in the morning for the processing to finish. So the dilemma I face is that I want to do this game for this other developer on Thursday. Friday I'm going to be back to Mass Effect, which potentially leaves me the weekend, but the weekend is normally when I record my YouTube stuff, and so it's unlikely that I'm going to find the time for that. And if I wait until next Tuesday, then I'm going to be 1 week behind on the vodcasts, and at that point there's really no point in watching the vodcast. So what I'm going to do now, normally I'd love to host someone tonight, but for those of you who do like role-playing games, I'm going to end the stream. I'm going to set it up for the vodcast for Morrowind. I will not be able to be live for the whole thing. Normally I like to participate inside of chat. But for those of you who want to see this horrible experiment, I do encourage you to hang out. It's I don't know. So the reason why I started doing this is that I really didn't care for Skyrim when I first played it. I thought it was weird that I could kill dragons and then walk down the street and get mauled by a bear. And like lose hours of progress. I felt like I was on a treadmill with lots of people telling me stuff that I should have done. Like, just giving me extra quests and whatnot. Like, I bounced off of that game hard. And that's purely on me. But what's been interesting is that since I've played Arena and Daggerfall, like in Arena, there are special holidays where you get discounts on swords and stuff like that. So I would find that I would like stay in town for a while doing these side quests, which didn't take more than a day away from, from where I was, so that I could get a good deal on, on a cool new weapon. And, I actually kind of really appreciated why people like playing that game, I'm trying to think of the best way for me to put it. Like, I think I finally understand this whole idea of like open worlds and these really, these huge lists of things that you can get done. I don't always like it, but I understand it a little bit better. And as a result, I've been able to appreciate the series more. So it's still my first experience with Morrowind. I'm really enjoying it. It is probably my favorite so far, although that's, that's probably not it's probably not a controversial or interesting statement, I suppose. But yeah, I'm going to stop introducing it. I am going to have to turn off the stream for a little bit. So if you are interested in seeing this, I encourage you to stick around in the chat. I will try and chat during a little bit of it. And if this doesn't seem like your sort of thing, or you cannot stand the silly voice, or for any other reason, if you're looking for more Mass Effect, that will be Friday. I'm going to do my best to do another stream for tomorrow. I'm not going to say what the game is, but it's an indie, and it got a big new update with a popular musician. So I'm looking forward to that. And for those of you watching me for the strategy stuff, that will be on Monday. So thank you, everybody, for watching. And give me 45 seconds while I queue up the next video. See you all in a little bit.